A creature with a gruesome white bone jaw roared. It and its kin were sweeping through humanity's defenses in a chaotic battle. A soldier screamed in despair as he was struck by a fatal blow, and collapsed on the spot, blood splattering. From the shadows, another, more gruesome monster appeared. Amidst a battlefield strewn with his comrades' corpses, a young soldier survived. He desperately wondered, "Is this the end?" A shadow tentacle lunged, intending to finish him off, but a mysterious figure appeared just in time, blocking the attack. Facing the monster, he showed no hesitation. The soldier in the hat charged into battle, confronting the enemy alone. He swung his weapon, cleaving through the surrounding shadow entities. Even after being struck by a blow, he remained standing. His gaze remained sharp and resolute. Immediately, he opened fire in retaliation. Commander Han Sung ordered, "Get up, we're moving on." The young soldier immediately obeyed, while another gunman was ready. Another soldier in the formation also advanced, ready to fight. Having endured countless endless battles, only a few survivors remained. A soldier declared resolutely, "The final objective is right before us." He bravely charged straight towards the colossal shadow monster. Meanwhile, on another battlefield, Han Sung knelt in despair before a strange magic circle. He exclaimed in horror, "What is this?" Amidst the chaotic battlefield, Han Sung unleashed a golden shield to protect his comrades. His subordinate soldiers stared, calling his name in vain. "Commander?" A mysterious voice echoed through the space, calling his name. "Answer the summons, Han Sung." Gleaming golden chains from the void tightened around his body. Han Sung was pulled into another space, suspended, amidst the astonishment of the cloaked crowd. He bewilderedly wondered, "What are these glowing shackles? Where am I?" An elder stepped forward, greeting him. "Hero from another world, welcome to the Empire." Han Sung stood helpless, his entire body bound by magic. The elder earnestly proposed, "Though we know this is sudden, we implore you to defeat the Demon King and save our world." Han Sung roared in anger. "What the hell are you talking about? Where am I? Who are you people? I'm supposed to be in Korea," the elder coldly commanded. Silence. The oath of imprisonment activated, magical currents tormenting Han Sung, making him scream in pain. He warned, "Do not resist. This magic will not harm you if you are compliant." Han Sung collapsed, coughing violently, gritting his teeth as he retorted, "Since when have I been compliant?" The elder ignored him, repeating the request while a younger priest presented a sword. "Please defeat the evil Demon King and save our empire," he concluded. As the sword dropped before Han Sung, the elder made a promise. "If you do so, we can return you to your world." He extended his hand, asking, "Will you accept our request?" Han Sung remained silent, his face contorted under the magical restraint. Finally, he desperately agreed. "Fine, I'll do it." Since then, Han Sung was once again summoned to another world to fight as the hero from another world for an empire. He toiled ceaselessly and participated in countless expeditions. He slew enemies again and again, fulfilling all the empire's endless demands. 3 years, 5 years, then 10 years passed in the smoke and fire of war. He sacrificed his youth to finally defeat the Demon King of Valor. He wondered if he would finally be free, dreaming every night of returning home. But then, back in reality, the elder declared, "Now, Han Sung, I will tell you your next mission." Han Sung protested in shock. "What? This isn't what you promised." But the old man casually replied that saving the empire was not yet over. He explained that there were still those who opposed the empire's unification, and they needed to be eliminated. The next target was Bottle of the Night Kingdom of Teutonia, and he promised it would be the final mission for his freedom. "Just help us a little longer, won't you?" he said condescendingly, while Han Sung strained against the magical shackles. He gritted his teeth and cursed silently. "A dog with a collar has no choice. These damn bastards." His desperate thoughts echoed, "When will this ever end?" The scene shifted to the kingdom of Teutonia, engulfed in flames. Amidst the ruins, Han Sung delivered a fatal sword thrust to Battle. Badel looked at him with an incredulous gaze, uttering, "You." Bottle, blood dripping from his mouth, growled, "Don't apologize, Han Sung, because soon, you'll be discarded too." Han Sung thought everything was over and he was about to go home, unaware that a figure had approached from behind. A sudden flash of light appeared. Han Sung was stunned, as he felt a sharp pain pierce through his body. The attacker was the general he trusted, who sneered, "Well done, hero from another world." Han Sung horrifyingly recognized his assailant, Count Brandenburg. Brandenburg acknowledged Han Sung's contributions as a loyal hound for the Empire. Han Sung gritted his teeth in fury, realizing it was all a lie. "You hypocrites. So you never intended to send me home." "Why would we do that?" Brandenburg retorted coldly. "A hound only knows how to bite and tear." Han Sung collapsed at Brandenburg's cruel farewell. In his final moments he bitterly thought, "I knew they wouldn't let me go easily. but I still can't accept this. Gathering his last ounce of strength, he swore, I will never forget this humiliation. I will make your cursed empire pay. With complete annihilation. That night, one life faded, and another began amidst the congratulations of a duchess. A beautiful blonde woman, his mother, smiled gently. My dear, I am your mother. But Han Sung's mind, now in the body of a child, turned to the man standing behind her. Who is that? I've seen that face before. A flash of memory sparked, and the infant suddenly realized. That man, Han Sung's consciousness recalled. It was the continent's greatest necromancer and dark mage, Duke Saxon. Then this must be the Empire's forbidden magic headquarters, Necropolis. This is also where the Black Tower is located. The Stone of Reincarnation, a one-time use item, had been successfully activated. It was the forbidden artifact I had hidden to break free from the Hound's chains. And the body I reincarnated into was entirely up to fate. I never expected to be reborn as the eldest son of Duke Saxon's family, one of the Empire's most elite nobles. It seems I've been born with a silver spoon this time. When I grow up and master necromancy, I'll wipe out those imperial bastards. Duke Saxon asked, Nanny? The child isn't crying. The Duchess worried. How strange, he's breathing steadily but silent. Could you check his condition more closely? In the child's mind, a warrior growled, I am no child. Tears don't come easily. After checking, the nanny reassured. Young master's breathing is stable. There's no need to worry. The Duke still wondered, isn't a child who doesn't cry an ill omen? The nanny chuckled. No need to worry, Your Grace. But if you truly want the young master to cry, just smack his bottom. Han Sung, even in his infant form, was seething with indignation at the insult. The Duke chuckled. What a stubborn child. He must have inherited his mother's strong will. The Duchess smiled gently. Let me. The child watched warily as his mother's hand was raised. Damn it. Han Sung squeezed his eyes shut, bracing for a hit. But instead of a slap, he only felt his mother's warm embrace and gentle gaze. The moment the warmth from her gentle hand touched his skin, he was utterly silent. Han Sung suddenly remembered something. When was the last time he felt warmth? It was a foreign sensation to the solitary soldier who knew only battle. But his new mother's trembling hand radiated a love he had never known. Han Sung, who seemed to have become emotionally hardened, finally couldn't hold back his tears. 8 years had passed since Dale, his new name, came into this world. In the bedroom, Duke Saxon and his wife were talking about their studious son. The Duchess reminded her husband, whom she called Alan, about the promise between them. It was a promise not to teach Dale necromancy. I still remember, Alan reassured his wife, as she let out a sigh of relief. He smiled, revealing that Dale's birthday gift would be something else. Their conversation was abruptly cut short by a hurried knock at the door. A panicked maid burst in, calling out the Duke's name. Young Master Dale, she stammered, leaving the couple stunned. Both rushed to their son's room, calling out his name in worry. Dale was sitting amidst a fierce mana vortex, calling out for his parents. Both were utterly horrified by the sight of the exploding magical power. I'm fine, Mom, Dale weakly replied as his mother embraced him. Duke Saxon stood frozen, sensing the dense mana flow in the air. He couldn't believe it. An 8-year-old child could unleash mana. Duke Saxon questioned Dale with glowing red eyes. Did you just release mana? Dale broke into a sweat, thinking he needed to answer cleverly to avoid suspicion. Contrary to his intimidating appearance, Duke Saxon smiled faintly. He affectionately ruffled his son's hair, his voice full of pride. You truly are my son. But then he added, it's a pity I cannot teach you necromancy myself. Dale was stunned, his revenge plan on the verge of collapse. His mother, the Duchess, appeared and told him to go to his room to rest. As Dale turned away, Duke Saxon called his wife's name, Elena. He had an idea for a special birthday gift for Dale. Not long after, at Dale's birthday banquet, nobles had gathered in full force. They eagerly chatted, anticipating the protagonist's appearance. Meanwhile, on the second floor, Dale felt tired of the party's noise. He sighed, feeling exhausted from facing the crowd. Being treated like a noble was still too unfamiliar for a former hero like him. Dale's thoughts returned to the incident 2 days prior when he accidentally destroyed the table. Simply by reading a book about his past life, the mana within him had run wild, a talent he couldn't abandon. He recalled overhearing his parents' conversation, wondering how to persuade his father. Back in reality, his thoughts were interrupted by his mother's voice. We've kept you waiting, Dale. Elena smiled, wishing her son a happy birthday. Beside her was a mysterious cloaked figure. Dale curiously asked about the strange guest, and his mother told him to come closer to greet them. The mysterious guest was introduced as an elder of the Blue Magic Tower. She was also a master of aquamancy, the enlightened demon Sophia. Elena announced that Sophia would be Dale's master, which greatly surprised the boy. While his mother wished him a happy birthday, Dale was still stunned by having such a formidable master. The boy secretly understood that his mother truly didn't want him to learn dark magic. Sephia suggested speaking with Dale privately for a moment. They were both teleported to a snowy mountain region, where Sephia began their conversation. She shrewdly asked Dale directly if he was disappointed to only be learning aquamancy. To Dale's astonishment, Sephia asserted that the boy surely wanted to learn his father's necromancy. She explained that Duke Noir's marriage conditions had spread throughout the empire. A memory flooded back of Duke Saxon proposing and promising Elena not to teach dark arts to their children. Sephia recalled their wedding, where the elders of the Black Magic Tower all wore white. Returning to the present, Sephia admitted the vow was difficult, but she would try to persuade Elena. "Will you accept my guidance?" Sephia offered. Dale skeptically asked if an elf like her would detest necromancy, something against nature. Sephia merely smiled, finding the question interesting. She countered with a question about priests resurrecting the dead, which stunned Dale. To her, necromancy and resurrection magic were one and the same. Dale thought to himself, this master didn't have narrow-minded views like other elves. "Then, let the lesson begin," Sephia declared, giving Dale his first goal, to perfect his magic circle. Dale thought about the first circle, a basic requirement for most spells he had always longed to try. Following Sophia's words, he placed his hand on his heart, closed his eyes, focused, and felt this world was truly different, unlike Earth. The boy's eyes glowed with a deep blue light, connecting to the endless mana source around him. Sephia explained that this world was overflowing with mana, but only ancient creatures like dragons could handle it in its raw form. Therefore, humans needed a special filter, known as the mana heart circle. The task was to gather scattered mana fragments, assemble them into a complete circle, and maintain its operation. Immediately, Dale understood, likening it to carving a path for mana to flow within his heart, just as his master had said. "Begin by carefully circulating mana around your heart," Sephia instructed. She also warned that this usually took a month, but Dale interrupted, mana already beginning to converge around him. "Master, I just did it," the boy declared, a swirling orb of energy in his palm, leaving Sephia dumbfounded. The demon race master could only utter one word in her mind. What? She couldn't believe it. Her student had formed the circle just minutes after starting practice. Was this a born genius? Dale was now controlling an even larger orb of energy. Regaining her composure, Sephia presented the next challenge. "Dale, can you release mana through the circle?" "I'll try, Master," Dale replied, closing his eyes and focusing all his concentration on the exploding mana orb in his hand. Normally, even releasing energy was an extreme challenge for beginners. Memories of his past life flooded back. Hansung was powerless, only able to use pre-engraved magic, unable to exact revenge, but this time would be different. He had inherited his father's talent. This body accepted mana naturally. "I can learn more than just aquamancy," Dale thought to himself, focusing on guiding the mana flow to his fingertips to shape it. A perfectly sharp ice crystal was created from thin air, hovering above the newly formed magic circle. The sharpest shard, ready to pierce the Empire's throat. A perfect ice crystal was created, radiating a brilliant blue mana flow. Sephia was stunned, thinking that mana usually dissipates upon leaving the body, but the boy had crystallized it into a complete ice arrow. "I only focused on maintaining its shape, so its power probably isn't strong," Dale said, then launched the arrow. The ice arrow shot through the air, aiming straight for a distant tree trunk. The moment of impact, a brilliant blue energy burst flashed. The ancient tree trunk exploded into splinters before Sephia's eyes. The demoness could only stare in shock, speechless at the sight. It pierced straight through the wood. This sharpness and solidity, coupled with absolute precision, it can't be from an 8-year-old, she analyzed. Dale smiled innocently, while Sephia, still bewildered, wondered, who exactly is this child? Sephia approached, touching the remaining tree stump, which was still covered in frost. She realized the boy wasn't just controlling mana, he was also perfectly absorbing the surrounding cold energy to create elemental magic. Seeing his teacher silent, Dale anxiously asked, "Teacher, did I do something wrong?" Sephia simply remained silent, offering an enigmatic smile. She knew that the complexity of this magic formula far exceeded what a child could unconsciously create. Rotation, acceleration, and compression. Dale had inadvertently used 3 formulas, dubbed the golden ratio of military magic, to create a perfect attack. "It's nothing," Sephia reassured. "Now I understand why Lord Noir felt regret." The scene shifted to a cozy room, where Duke Saxon questioned, "What do you mean you can't teach Dale? If the boy reached the first circle in just a few minutes, you should teach him even more," he emphasized. But Sephia began to explain to Duke Saxon. The boy used a perfect defensive magic on the spot. "It's hard to believe an 8-year-old cast it," she continued. "The military magic formula was used with a perfect golden ratio," she concluded sharply, Your Grace, young Master Dale has an innate talent for offensive magic. Duke Saxon frowned, questioning. So you mean, as an elder of the Blue Magic Tower who pursues non-violence, you can't teach Dale? Sephia firmly denied. That's not it at all. If anything, she said, I feel a strong urge to personally guide the boy down the right path. The Duke still didn't understand. If that's the case, there's no reason for you to refuse. Sophia revealed the shocking truth. It's Lord Noir's dark magic. It seems young Master Dale already possesses the type of magic he wants to learn. She looked him straight in the eye. I've heard much about your love story. I respect your promise to Lady Elena, but that doesn't give you the right to decide your child's future, especially for someone with such great talent as the young master. Meanwhile, outside, Dale was pressing his ear to the door, thinking, I can't hear anything they're saying. The boy sat down on the floor, anxiously wondering. They must be talking about me, right? Dale's thoughts returned to the previous moment. I didn't expect my first spell to be so powerful. Elder Sephia looked very surprised. He sighed, determined. From now on, I'll have to be more careful in controlling my power. Suddenly, a familiar voice rang out. Young Master Dale? Dale looked up sharply, his eyes shining with joy. He exclaimed upon seeing a man in armor smiling. Uncle Helmut, what are you doing here? Helmut chuckled in response. Let me ask you first, where have you been? The man affectionately ruffled Dale's hair. Haha, I traveled far to complete my mission of protecting the ducal family and defeating terrifying monsters. Dale joyfully jumped into his uncle's arms. Dale smiled and asked his close uncle, Did you just return from a dungeon? The boy's eyes gleamed with complexity, and a train of thought began. In this world, the appearance of dungeons and monsters is a matter of life and death for every territory, ever since the Demon King existed. Therefore, knights must dedicate themselves to clearing dungeons or eliminating rampant monsters, and the situation in the Saxon territory is many times worse. The reason for that is me, Han Sung from my previous life, who defeated the Demon King and made Duke Saxon take over this monster-infested land. Frankly speaking, this is essentially cleaning up someone else's mess. Dale returned to reality, cautioning, Uncle Helmut, please be careful. Helmut responded to his approaching father. You still look well, while Dale also politely greeted. Father, Duke Saxon smiled. I acknowledge your hard work in the recent dungeon raid. Just then, Duchess Elena appeared, surprising Dale. What are you doing here, mother? Elena joyfully called her son's name. Dale. She hugged the boy tightly, proudly saying, I heard you reached the first circle. I'm so proud of you. The Duke also congratulated him and promised to reward Dale with anything he wished for. Dale pondered, wondering if asking to learn necromancy was too cunning, and what a child his age usually wished for. Finally, the boy boldly declared, I want a little sister. Faced with the unexpected request, the Duke awkwardly promised to do his best, while Dale happily responded. From a distance, Helmut couldn't help but laugh, causing the young knight beside him to remind, Captain, don't laugh. Night fell, enveloping the magnificent Saxon territory. Dale lay in bed, silently lamenting the exhaustion of having to play the role of an innocent child. He felt utterly drained, likely due to using magic. Horrific memories flooded back, and Han Sung's eyes widened in despair. Brandenburg suddenly appeared behind him, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Long time no see, Han Sung. How have you been? He gripped Han Sung tightly, sneering. Humans truly are cunning, so easily becoming weak, aren't they? Brandenburg continued to taunt him about his new life, about the family and comfort that had dulled his will for revenge. With a sinister smile, the Holy Knight growled, The Empire will find you, Han Sung. His threat echoed, that they would hunt him to the ends of the earth. Dale shot up in bed, gasping as the nightmare turned real, blue magic power surging from his body. The boy clutched his chest, feeling as if his heart would explode from the chaotic energy flow. Amidst the room filled with magical light, Dale realized this was a magical rampage. Enraged, he stumbled forward, the curses against the Empire still echoing in his mind. They won't let me go, even to the very end. The resentful thought made the energy even more violent. He rushed out into the cold snow, hoping the fresh air would help, but it was in vain. The pain intensified, and the situation worsened by the moment. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the shadows. You seem to be having some trouble. Realizing it was Sophia, Dale was astonished, while she had already seen through his condition and sensed the potential danger. Sophia calmly extended her hand towards Dale, preparing to intervene in the chaotic magic flow. Her hand gently rested on the boy's chest, channeling a stable stream of energy. Sophia thought to herself, if this magic were to be consumed by malice, the consequences would be dire. The rampage dissipated, leaving only a pure and peaceful orb of magic power in Dale's hand. Sophia called his name, pulling Dale out of his daze. Sophia explained, The essence of magic is a mirror reflecting the heart. She assessed Dale's talent as life-stealing, an extremely dangerous innate ability. When Sophia handed him a book and offered to be his teacher, Dale exclaimed in astonishment, "Master?" The boy realized with horror that it was a grimoire of necromancy. Sophia smiled gently, saying that perhaps fate had brought her to be with him from now on. Amidst the rush of emotions, a birthday wish suddenly echoed in Dale's mind. Unable to hold back, the boy rushed to embrace the woman who had just accepted him. Sophia merely gently patted his head, teasing, "You truly are a demanding child." A few days later, on the snowy field outside the north gate, Sophia began the first lesson. "A rabbit?" "Yes," she confirmed, pointing towards a white rabbit in the forest. Following his master's words, Dale recalled his hunting trips with his father and began to channel magic. The boy focused his energy, unleashing a spell towards the target. A sharp, icy spear shot through the air. Where it struck, a terrifying explosion erupted, obliterating a vast area of land. Sophia murmured meaningfully, "The same incantation, yet its form changes infinitely depending on the mage." Standing before the charred crater, she called her student's name, Dale. "Do you know why, Dale?" Sophia asked, and the boy could only shake his head. She explained that magic is a mirror, reflecting the mind, materializing what lies deep within the heart. Dale remained silent, sweat trickling down his cheeks as he tried to digest the profound lesson. Sophia concluded that even the magic taught in the towers was merely a stepping stone to shape the images in one's mind. Sophia began her lecture. The red magic tower values order through power, and the blue magic tower values order through harmony. She explained that the philosophy of each magic tower was reflected through their own magic, forming the foundation for their unique magical system. Sophia smiled, concluding the theoretical part. Then she turned to Dale, "But I suppose this topic is still too early for you." The practical lesson began. The most basic form of necromancy is reanimating a corpse. It is the art of making a corpse move by using mana threads to control it. Dale focused intently, connecting mana threads to the creature's head, spine, and knees. The undead rabbit with glowing red eyes stood up, and Sophia praised, "Well done, Dale." Sophia asked if he could continue immediately, and Dale confidently replied, "Yes, master." The next lesson was defensive magic, ice armor. Dale's eyes flashed with an icy blue light. The boy unleashed a massive surge of icy energy that enveloped the target. The undead rabbit was now encased in a layer of sharp ice armor, and Sophia remarked that its form was quite good. "Let's see its defensive capabilities," Sophia said, a magic circle appearing in her hand. Dale held his breath as a colossal bolt of ice lightning shot straight towards his creature. Sophia's attack directly impacted the ice armor. The armor cracked but held firm with astonishing resilience. "It worked. I blocked Master's attack." Dale cheered in delight. Sophia looked at her student with a satisfied gaze. "Excellent work, Dale." Sophia noticed Dale had something to say, so she asked him what he wanted. The boy eagerly confirmed. With a radiant smile, Dale placed his hand on his chest and began to express his wish. He earnestly requested her to teach him more about how to utilize water magic. But Dale's anticipation was met with a blunt refusal, "No," which stunned him. Sophia explained that what Dale demonstrated today was merely the most basic form of hydromancy. She emphasized that, like all magic, water magic requires a deeper understanding when developing to higher levels. For most beginners, learning even one magic system is a challenge. Those who can simultaneously use two systems are called dual mages. Sophia concluded that at Dale's age, it was almost impossible and merely a pipe dream. The two words pipe dream stunned Dale, and the smile on his face vanished. He didn't understand why his utmost efforts were considered mere ambition. With a hurt expression, Dale reminded Sophia of her promise that they would find a way forward together. Struck by his words, Sophia, flustered, hastily ended the lesson right there. That night, Dale decided to research on his own in the family library. He told himself that there was nothing he couldn't do alone, and he would prove it to her. He was determined to leave Sophia with no choice but to teach him. After a night of hard work, Dale awoke to someone calling his name. The next morning, Sophia worriedly noticed the dark circles under his eyes, but Dale simply replied that he had stayed up late preparing a few things. Despite his master's advice not to overexert himself, Dale confidently smiled and said, "Yes, master." Immediately after, a purple, dark magic circle appeared from his palm. In the middle of the snowy forest, a gigantic ice monster appeared. Sophia smiled in recognition. "You've completely mastered it." Immediately, the monster's icy shell began to crack violently. Sophia exclaimed in shock, "Ice burst?" as the monster exploded into pieces. But she quickly realized, "It's not over yet," as a dark rabbit rose from the rubble. The shadow rabbit roared, gathering a colossal orb of dark energy. It unleashed a destructive blow, releasing all its energy forward. A terrifying explosion combining ice and shadow engulfed the entire area. Sophia was utterly speechless, an analytical magic field appearing around her. She couldn't believe her eyes. The enlightened demon could only remain silent before her student's power. Dale calmly explained, corpse burst and ice burst. I've combined the water and dark attributes into one. The boy proudly showed off the two magic flows in his hands. With this, can I be considered a dual attribute mage? The terrifying destructive power of the technique had flattened a vast area. Sephia thought to herself in astonishment, this is an attack method I've never seen before. The explosion from the ice armor combined with corpse burst increased the area of effect, turning the bone-like ice shards into deadly blades. She bent down to pick up a sharp ice shard, her mind filled with turmoil. Sophia realized that this magic was purely for killing, as if created by someone who had dedicated their entire life to the battlefield. She wondered what the inner image of this child truly looked like, as the silhouette of a ruthless warrior appeared in her mind. Dale turned back, his eyes gleaming with a blue light. Oh? Amidst the snowy landscape, Dale happily ran over, calling out loudly, Uncle Helmut! Young master, Lady Sophia. Helmut, on horseback, cheerfully waved as Dale curiously asked about their journey. This time, we subdued a small group of monsters, he reported. He proudly stated that the Black Knights had to intervene. They were the invincible cavalry of the Duchy of Saxon, with their spears enveloped in aura. Furthermore, their captain, Knight Helmut, was also one of the continent's 7 renowned swordmasters. Dale slyly reminded him of his promise to teach swordsmanship, thinking this was an opportunity not to be missed. Ha ha ha, of course not. Helmut burst out laughing, and Dale happily said he'd see him later. Helmut told the boy to stay warm, then spurred his horse and rode off, while Dale waved goodbye. Let's head back too, Sophia said, and Dale obediently replied to his master. That night, in a cozy room, Sophia calmly answered the Duke's question. Just as I said, she announced that young Master Dale had mastered the first magic circle of both hydromancy and necromancy. Duke Saxon and Duchess Elena were stunned, because what they had asked her to teach their son was merely hydromancy. Sophia explained that, as his instructor, she wanted to teach Dale anything he wished to learn. After a moment of silence, Elena spoke, starting by respecting her son's wishes. May I ask you to continue teaching him hydromancy? She gently but firmly requested. Of course, Sophia agreed, and the Duke also consented to entrust their son to her. Sophia stood silently, her gaze pensive, seemingly contemplating something far beyond their recent conversation. Sophia bowed her head, sincerely apologizing for breaking her promise to Lord Noir. After she left, Elena proudly exclaimed, Our son is truly extraordinary, isn't he? He's only 8, and already a dual-element mage. Duke Saxon replied with a heavy expression, admitting that his son's talent also came with fear. Looking directly into his wife's eyes, he expressed a momentous decision. I want to teach Dale necromancy. He wanted his son to have enough power to bear heavy responsibilities, and at the same time, he wanted a talented disciple to inherit his legacy. Above all, as a father, he yearned for Dale to continue his legacy. Nevertheless, Duke Saxon still hung his head in torment, feeling guilty towards Elena. Elena gently reminded him of society's prejudice, that necromancy was considered the magic of death. I wanted to dissuade you, she said, but then her eyes lit up with a different resolve. Placing her hand on her husband's cheek, Elena smiled decisively. Train him to become a necromancer who disregards all prejudice. She gently embraced him, whispering, Is that okay? Duke Saxon held his wife tightly, his heart relieved as he replied, I understand, Elena. With a vow to train his son to be the best, the first day of the special necromancy training began. The lesson began with Duke Saxon's stern reprimand. I am very disappointed in you, Dale. He couldn't believe his son had revived life without understanding the nature of what he was controlling. That's all Master taught me. Dale desperately protested amidst the magic circle. His father immediately took the boy down to the underground magic workshop as soon as he demonstrated basic necromancy. As long as I am teaching you, Duke Saxon said sternly, never use that rudimentary magic again. Instead, Dale's first lesson was to memorize the bone and muscle structures of all living creatures. Under his father's stern gaze, the boy could only mumble his obedience. After memorizing every word in the anatomy books his father gave him, Dale felt complacent. He believed he had finally completed the basic knowledge and was ready to move on to practical magic. Duke Saxon smiled, announcing that the real lesson was just beginning, and Dale obediently complied. But then, the boy suddenly froze with a surprised expression. Before him was a goblin corpse placed on the table, leaving him stunned. Duke Saxon noticed his son's confusion and smiled. He began to explain the difference between an inexperienced necromancer and a seasoned master. Duke Saxon issued a challenge, asking Dale to try moving the corpse in front of him. Dale accepted the challenge, beginning to focus on using dark magic. The boy concentrated intensely, sweat beginning to bead on his forehead. In his mind, Dale analyzed that controlling a goblin would be much more complex than a small creature. He shot a thread of mana towards the goblin corpse, Dale quickly realized that controlling it was as difficult as a complex puppet. He had to exert himself. He frantically realized his mistake. Stiffening the body to increase defense had rendered its joints immobile. Dale was confused, not knowing what to do in this situation. Duke Saxon placed a hand on his son's shoulder, pointing out that Dale's idea was good, but flawed. He explained that accelerating the stiffening process would severely restrict the corpse's movement. "Watch this," Duke Saxon commanded, his purple eyes flashing with power. A massive surge of dark energy poured from his hand, enveloping the corpse. Dale could only gape in astonishment as he watched the goblin corpse revive, hovering in mid-air with surging demonic power. Duke Saxon began his lecture. "The rib cage is originally used to protect a person's internal organs, but there's no need to protect the internal organs of the dead, is there?" he explained. "Understand the target structure and modify it according to your needs." Dale could only stare in awe at the terrifying demonstration. The Duke concluded, "That is the foundation of dark magic." Snapping out of it, Dale looked up at his father. "Father, please teach me the philosophy of the Noir Magic Tower." Duke Saxon smiled, asking again, "The truth?" He knelt down, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. "Truth always exists within death. Therefore, we must understand the weight of life to reach the truth." His father's words inadvertently stirred a dark memory from Dale's past life. A desperate voice echoed in his head, "Please spare me." Amidst the blazing battlefield, Han Sung stood coldly before a kneeling enemy. "I beg you, hero." Without hesitation, he raised his blood-stained sword despite the plea. "Please, don't kill." The brutal memory was cut short by Duke Saxon's voice. "Dale?" He shook the dazed boy's shoulder. "Are you all right? You don't look so good." Dale reassured his father. I'm fine, father." The boy affirmed it once more, with the image of his past life in his mind. As Dale progressed in magic every day, news of Duke Saxon teaching dark magic to his son spread throughout the empire. Duke Saxon breaking his vow caused a huge stir, and the one who caused it attracted the attention of everyone in the empire, including the nobility. Now, all eyes were on him. Weeks later at the Duke's training grounds, Dale was highly focused. He was in an intense sword training session. 2 wooden swords clashed, sending sparks flying. His instructor smirked with interest. Dale steadfastly fended off the relentless attacks. The swordsman grew more aggressive with each strike, constantly pushing him back. Seizing the opportunity, Dale unleashed a sharp counterattack. The boy leaped into the air, delivering a lightning-fast overhead strike. The instructor was stunned by the sudden attack. His wooden sword was knocked from his hand, embedding itself in the ground. "Haha, young master, well done." The swordsman burst out laughing in praise. Dale panted, narrowing his eyes as he asked, "A knight like you would never drop his sword. You let go on purpose, didn't you?" "Of course not. You used real combat swordsmanship. An ordinary person would have died from the very first move." The instructor looked at his hand, sighing. "Your swordsmanship is so excellent that I almost regret you're a mage." The swordsman explained that mages always have knight escorts to protect them. He smiled and said, "You really don't need to train this hard. Is there a special reason?" He continued to advise Dale not to push himself to the point of injury. Looking at his bandaged hand, Dale asserted, "Of course there is." The boy clenched his fist, declaring, "What's so cool about a duke's son who only relies on escorts or defensive magic?" Moreover, he couldn't miss the opportunity to be personally taught by one of the continent's 7 swordmasters. The swordmaster chuckled softly at that spirited answer. Then he burst into hearty laughter. "An excellent answer. If I had a son, I would have no regrets." While Dale was secretly delighted by the praise, an elegant figure approached. It was his mother, Elena, who smiled and remarked, "It seems you two are having a lot of fun." Dale happily ran to his mother, asking why she was out in such cold weather. Elena replied that she wanted to see how diligent her son had been, and also had some news to share. She asked Dale if he remembered the birthday wish he had made. Dale was confused, trying to recall what his birthday wish had been, after all. A memory suddenly rushed back. He had boldly demanded a baby sister, leaving both Duke Saxon and Elena stunned. Back in the present, Elena glowed as she rubbed her belly, announcing, "You'll have to take care of your sibling, Dale." Dale cheered with joy, his eyes shining brightly as he promised firmly, "Of course." 10 months later, the whole family gathered in the bedroom, Dale engrossed in gazing at his newborn sister. The boy gently touched her cheek, finding it still hard to believe he had a baby sister. Dale affectionately held his sister, thinking to himself that she was incredibly adorable. Duke Saxon asked his son if he wanted to hold his sister, which startled Dale. Elena gently encouraged him, and Dale realized that holding his sister wasn't as difficult as he had imagined. "She looks just like you, doesn't she?" his mother asked, but Dale just quietly gazed at her. Elena delightedly noticed that the baby always cried when her mother held her, but smiled brightly in her brother's arms. Dale smiled affectionately, a warm feeling swelling in his heart. "How do you feel now?" his father asked with concern. Dale replied, "She's as light as a feather, but I feel like she's very heavy, father." Duke Saxon smiled knowingly, because that was the weight of life itself. "Never forget it, Dale." He placed a hand on his son's shoulder and instructed. After the warm family moment, the Duke reminded Dale that it was time for his lesson. Master Sophia was waiting. In the snowy forest, Sophia smiled and announced, "Today's lesson is live combat." Dale hesitated and asked again, and Sophia encouraged him to attack with all his might. "Understood, Master," Dale replied, and a magic circle immediately appeared. "Let's see how much you've improved." Sophia also gathered her magic, ready for battle. Immediately, Dale launched a barrage of sharp ice spears towards his master, but Sophia merely flicked her hand, shattering the attack and scoffing. Too slow. She easily neutralized all the ice spears, her gaze beginning to show displeasure. Holding up a shard of ice, Sophia provoked. A student holding back against their master? Dale was stunned. He hadn't expected to be seen through. Provoked, Sophia unleashed a fierce ice spell, shouting, "Raise the barrier, quickly." Dale couldn't react in time and was thrown back by the force of the attack. He sighed in relief, looking at the shattered ice armor on his arm. "If I hadn't blocked that attack, I would have been seriously injured." Sophia smirked, showing admiration. "You managed to create ice armor in that brief moment. Impressive." Dale stood up, the last layer of ice on his arm shattering completely. "Excellent, Dale. Come here," Sophia challenged, but Dale had other plans, muttering, "Molecular combination, ice wall formula." The boy placed his hand on the snow, roaring, "Rise, ice wall!" To Sophia's astonishment, a colossal ice wall rose from the ground. She couldn't help but be amazed. "He's using an ice wall in the middle of a battle?" Sophia observed that this wall, reinforced with mana, had an extremely high density and was very sturdy. But why use a defensive spell at this moment? She wondered, touching the icy surface. She speculated, "Could it be that he needs to rest after my last attack?" Suddenly, Sophia felt something was wrong. On the other side, Dale continued to chant, "Fragmentation formula, ice mist explosion." With a determined gaze, he commanded, "Detonate." Sophia was stunned to see the entire ice wall begin to emit a dazzling light. She cried out in horror as she realized her student's true intention, a disguised grenade. The entire ice wall exploded, engulfing Sophia in a storm of ice shards. Looking at his achievement, Dale smiled triumphantly. It worked. He explained his strategy, compressing the reinforced ice wall to its limit and then detonating it, transforming defense into a destructive offensive weapon. Dale thought to himself, "This attack will be hard to dodge, Master." He exhaled a plume of white smoke after casting the destructive magic. The boy frantically called for his master when he saw Sophia seemingly engulfed by his magic. But then Sophia suddenly appeared right behind him, smiling as she asked, "Did you call me?" Dale flinched, realizing that the person attacked was merely an illusion. Sophia snapped her fingers, praising her student's impressive technique. She touched the small scratch on her cheek, surprised that a novice mage could injure an elder of the magic tower. Dale quickly clarified that he had no intention of harming his master. Sophia smiled, saying she knew and was truly grateful for the injury, which left Dale bewildered. She explained that it proved he trusted her enough to use his full power. As his master, she was immensely proud of her outstanding student. Sophia affectionately patted Dale's head, curious about the magic formula he had created, while he humbly attributed it to her guidance. Hearing that, she simply smiled contentedly. Soon after, in the Duke's office, Sophia was startled by a voice calling her. Duke Saxon sat behind his desk, asking about the injury on her cheek, and Sophia explained it was due to the young master's sharp magic formula. Hearing that, Duke Saxon bowed his head, expressing that he was always indebted to her. Sophia humbly replied that teaching such a talented student was also a joy, and the Duke hinted at another request. She happily agreed, inviting him to speak. Duke Saxon reported a group of orcs had just infiltrated the territory, a threat that a small cavalry unit could handle. However, he declared his intention to send Dale to participate in this battle, which stunned Sophia. Sophia tried to object, but young Master Dale is not ready yet. Duke Saxon calmly dismissed it. "The boy won't have to fight on the front lines," he asserted firmly. "However, defending the territory is the duty of the Saxon family." Dark energy swirled around the Duke as he emphasized, "As the heir, the boy must understand that responsibility." Dale is no exception. Powerless against his resolve, Sophia reluctantly accepted. "What do I need to do?" Duke Saxon smiled, revealing his plan. "I will entrust my sacred artifact to Dale." He entrusted Sophia with the task, wanting her to guide Dale until the boy could control that power. A sacred artifact, an object containing immense power and will, could only be used by paying the price with mana or one's own life. The stronger the sacred artifact, the more dangerous and difficult it was to control, potentially even fatal in some cases. The Saxon family has long mastered the art of handling such powers. Duke Saxon confidently declared as all three approached the family's treasure vault. He turned to his son. Dale, as the heir, you too must prepare for the upcoming battle. Contrary to expectations, Dale was not afraid, but incredibly excited. Huh? A battle? Finally, the Duke confirmed. That's right, you will join the expeditionary force to eliminate the orcs. Before the vault door, he paused. However, before that, the door opened, revealing glittering sacred artifacts. You must learn to control the dark power that our family wields. Dale was stunned by the magnificent sight, while his father explained that these were the Demon King's sacred artifacts that they had managed since their ancestors conquered his domain. Dale felt the fierce magical energy emanating from them, and Duke Saxon warned him never to compare them to ordinary sacred artifacts. Exactly. All of them contain immense power and are extremely dangerous, the Duke said sternly. Until you learn to control them, do not touch anything recklessly. But when he turned around, the boy had vanished. Dale? Duke Saxon asked, bewildered. Where did the boy go? Completely unaware that Dale had already darted deep inside the vault. A moment ago, in the treasure vault, Dale thought to himself that he needed a suitable artifact. A golden shield suddenly spoke up, sensing his hatred and wanting to take revenge with him. The shield earnestly tempted him, promising to reach new heights with him if chosen. Dale sensed that these dark magic artifacts were resonating with the lingering resentment from his previous life, but he only smiled confidently, thinking they weren't strong enough yet. Suddenly, he noticed a black cloak that had appeared without him noticing. Dale realized it was a cloak of shadows. In the Age of Heroes, this was the supreme artifact of Duke Berta from the Demon King's Legion, capable of giving form to shadows. Without hesitation, Dale immediately put on the cloak. Just then, Duke Saxon and Sophia found him and called out their son's name loudly. The cloak suddenly erupted, and a surge of shadows lunged at Dale. He was pulled into another space, where a voice incessantly screamed that it was hungry. Everything had just begun. This was no ordinary shadow. Its past owner could summon shadow storms and control them like living beings. However, to truly control it, the owner had to make the shadow creature within completely submit. Dale realized it wouldn't easily submit when facing the chaotic dark entity. He reached out towards the mass of shadows, determined to subdue it. Sweat poured down, and Dale's eyes became unusually resolute. Outside, all the shadows condensed into a giant sphere, terrifying Duke Saxon and Sophia. The Duke was extremely worried. He knew that if this continued, Dale would lose his sanity and be devoured by the shadow creature. Duke Saxon realized the situation in horror, deciding he had to use force to pull his son out. Both he and Sophia were extremely tense before the terrifying surge of dark energy. When the shadows dissipated, Duke Saxon anxiously called out his son's name. Dale replied calmly, "Yes, father." Sophia rushed over to check, but Dale reassured her that he was perfectly fine. While Sophia breathed a sigh of relief, Duke Saxon couldn't believe how a child could be completely unharmed. He wondered how a boy could withstand such a powerful artifact. Suddenly, Dale spoke up. "Father, I have a question." The boy innocently asked if he could try other artifacts. That request left both Duke Saxon and Sophia completely speechless. With his father's permission, Dale joyfully began his treasure vault exploration that lasted day and night. A few days later at the training ground, a swordsman was astonished to realize what his young master was wearing. Dale smiled and confirmed, showing no signs of anything unusual. The swordsman anxiously asked again, but the boy only replied that he felt a slight tingling sensation. He marveled, thinking that perhaps this artifact had been lonely for too long. Dale explained that as soon as it saw him, the shadow creature clung to him and wouldn't let go. The boy innocently thought that perhaps it just wanted to be friends with him. The swordsman burst into hearty laughter at Dale's innocent thought. He exclaimed that the boy was truly too kind, making the shadow creature flinch and cling tightly to his leg. Dale smiled and thanked him for the compliment, calling his teacher by name, Uncle Helmut. Dale spoke to Helmut. "Oh, I have a request," the boy boldly proposed. "I want a real combat training match." Helmut burst into hearty laughter, drew his sword, and exuded a fierce aura. "Ha ha, of course. I'll do my best not to disappoint you." Facing one of the continent's 7 swordmasters, Dale thought to himself. His aura alone was terrifying enough. Helmut reassured the boy, "Don't be afraid. I'll only use basic swordsmanship, and won't use my aura." "You mean you'll go easy on me?" Dale frowned, clenching his fists. The boy stood tall. Shadows began to spread at his feet, believing that a knight's creed was to fight sincerely. Dale's true goal in this match was not a duel, but to practice using the Cloak of Shadows. The boy understood that the power of weapons created from the shadow creature would determine the true value of this artifact. Dale unleashed Shadow Blade Rush, and countless shadow blades lunged towards Helmut. The swordsman reacted in a flash, swinging his sword to block the attack. With a single sword stroke, Helmut sliced through the entire dark attack. Dale was stunned. He broke through the attack with pure strength? Unbelievable. Helmet laughed loudly, full of excitement at his student's performance. Haha, excellent. Well then, it's my turn to attack, Helmet growled, charging forward at an astonishing speed. Dale was startled by his teacher's lightning-fast attack. The boy quickly dove into the shadows, dodging Helmet's overhead sword strike. The swordsman was surprised to see his opponent vanish, as dark spikes simultaneously emerged from the ground. A surprise attack? How interesting, Helmet calmly remarked. From another pool of shadows, Dale emerged, ready for his next strike. Helmet unleashed a full-force attack, but Dale used the shadow from his cloak to block it. The collision created a powerful shockwave, pushing Helmet back in astonishment. The swordsman couldn't believe it. The kid blocked it? That blow is strong enough to snap a normal sword in half. Dale also recognized the clear difference between an ordinary weapon and a top-tier artifact. Overjoyed, Helmet roared, "Let's go for 10 more rounds." That day, the knights watching whispered in disbelief. No one had ever lasted more than 2 rounds with Captain Helmut. They felt an invisible wall separating themselves from Dale. A few days later, on the eve of their departure, Elena sought out her son and said she would try to convince his father one more time. She couldn't let Dale go to such a dangerous place, but the boy reassured his mother that his father and Uncle Helmut would be with him. Elena was still worried about the risks, fearing her son would get hurt. Dale firmly replied to his mother that he needed to become stronger to one day shoulder the responsibility of the entire family. The boy smiled, looking at his sleeping sister Liz, and said he needed strength to protect everyone, and this was the necessary experience. "Please allow me to become strong enough to protect you, Mother," Dale pleaded. Seeing her son's maturity and determination, Elena smiled gently and agreed. "Then go, my son." Dale mounted his horse, confidently promising, "I will return soon, Mother." The next morning, at the temporary base, a knight reported that the army was ready to depart. Duke Saxon nodded in satisfaction, seeing Dale fully prepared, with Helmet leading the troops behind him. He unexpectedly handed command to his son. "Dale, give the order to depart in my stead. Our proud Black Cavalry Legion will one day be under your command." Dale was stunned, realizing these were his own knights, not Han Sung's, and this battle would be his first as a leader. Leading the troops, Dale declared, "The time has come." He raised his fist high, shouting, "Forward, proud swords of House Saxon!" The entire cavalry corps responded in unison. "Yes, young master," Duke Saxon commanded. "All squads, to your positions." He explained that this campaign involved 250 cavalrymen and the Winter Warden's Special Forces unit, targeting about 1,000 orcs. The plan was laid out. Ambush the orcs as they crossed the lower Saxon River. To cross the river quickly, Cephia stepped forward and offered, "I will create an ice bridge." Dale smiled, secretly grateful, surprised that a proponent of peace like his master would personally come to help. Sophia unleashed her magic, creating a colossal ice bridge in the blink of an eye. She signaled to the troops, "Everyone can cross now." While Sophia wished them victory, Duke Saxon also extended his thanks to her. Dale turned back, smiling as he bid farewell to his master. "Master, I'm off." Sophia silently watched her young disciple's back as he gradually disappeared into the distance. She unconsciously smiled, a strange feeling. "I never thought a disciple could make his master worry this much," Sophia mused. At the same time, at the orcs' temporary base, they remained oblivious to the approaching danger. The hidden Special Forces unit, the Winter Wardens, began their ambush. A barrage of flaming arrows was unleashed, tearing through the night. A sudden rain of fire poured down, spreading terror throughout the entire orc encampment. An orc roared in pain and fury as an arrow pierced it. An orc roared in pain, an arrow deeply embedded in its back. From above, Helmet roared, "Now! Cavalry battalions, 1, 2, and 3, he loudly commanded. "Form a wedge formation and charge." Helmet turned to Dale, his voice full of confidence. "What do you think, young Master Dale?" Dale silently observed, calculating the terrifying power of the impending attack. The sweeping spear formation, enhanced by aura, easily pierced through the orcs' defenses. Dale remarked, "It's completely one-sided." Duke Saxon replied proudly, "This is the power of the Cavalry Legion our duchy prides itself on," Helmet warned. "However, don't let your guard down yet, young Master Dale. This is just the beginning," he said, as the orcs erected a sturdy shield wall. The battle became chaotic, as the cavalry charged directly into the enemy ranks. Helmet assessed the situation. The ambush was successful, but not enough to wipe them out. "We will retreat and reorganize." A brilliant green flare lit up the night sky, and the order to retreat was given. "All units, fall back." The cavalry began to retreat in an orderly fashion. The orcs stared blankly, not understanding why the enemy had suddenly fled. They growled in fury, feeling mocked. Suddenly, a lone knight broke from the formation, turned his horse, and charged straight towards the orcs. He quickly struck one down with a sword thrust through its throat, but immediately after, the knight was knocked off his horse, engulfed by the enemy's encirclement. From afar, Dale witnessed everything and uttered a cold remark. Unfortunate, Helmut announced, a knight has fallen. Dale merely thought to himself, do they consider him beyond saving? The proud sword of House Saxon had now fallen, exposed before the enemy. Witnessing that, Dale coldly questioned, why are you just standing there watching? Helmut and Duke Saxon remained silent, without a single movement. Dale secretly calculated that if he charged down on horseback, it would be too late. He decided, at this distance, I must pierce the orc's thick hide with a single blow. In his mind, the boy quickly refined the ice arrow formula, incorporating sniping techniques and ballistic equations to increase accuracy. Dale's eyes flashed with magical blue light. Just as the orc raised its weapon, a complex magic circle formed before him. A beam of icy light tore through space, heading straight for the target. Duke Saxon couldn't hide his astonishment. The distance is quite far, but the accuracy is incredibly high. Immediately after, Dale spurred his horse and charged straight onto the battlefield, ignoring a panicked knight calling after him. Let him go, Sir Helmut. Duke Saxon calmly stopped the worried swordsman. He smiled proudly, thinking to himself about his son who had independently created an original magic formula with such destructive power. Dale's inner world must be nearly complete, he concluded as he saw his son glide past Cephia. Dale maintained a resolute expression, without a hint of hesitation. He noticed other orcs gathering. Upon arrival, looking at the orc's corpse and the knight, Dale realized two problems. First, his body had stiffened from panic when he fell. Second, my original formula was too long and ineffective for combat, he told himself, determined to shorten it. The knight who had just been saved sat up, bewildered, and asked, like, ice. 98, Magnum? Dale thought to himself, still too long? Oh well, this will do. With a smug smile, he shouted the name of his new technique, Ice Bullet. Meanwhile, a knight screamed in terror as he was pursued by a ferocious orc. Instantly, a massive surge of icy magic was unleashed, hurtling straight towards the monster. The knight was stunned. Young Master Dale? Why would you save someone like me? Dale gently landed right in front of him. Don't worry, he reassured the kneeling knight. House Saxon never abandons a loyal sword. Before the knight could fully compose himself, he saw two more orcs charging. The orcs let out a savage roar, preparing to attack. Dale calmly raised his hand, and a sphere of dark energy began to form. He unleashed Shadow Blade, and countless blades of shadow rose from the ground. A sharp blade sliced through the orc's body. Dale commanded with a cold smile, eat them. The orcs growled in pain, as they were restrained by an unseen force. The shadow entity emerged from the ground, devouring its prey. It transformed into a massive maw, engulfing the orc in horror. A gruesome sight unfolded as the shadow entity ravenously chewed its enemy. In just a moment, all that remained was a white skeleton, before the horrified eyes of the surviving orc. Dale turned to look at it, smiling as he asked, you're still here? Dale coldly chanted Ice Bullet, finishing off the last orc. He smiled triumphantly, declaring the job done, while the rescued knight, exhausted, exclaimed, young Master Dale, my legs won't move anymore. Dale could only force a wry smile. Immediately after, the 8-year-old boy easily lifted the adult knight into his arms and cheerfully said, we succeeded. Reaching Helmut and the cavalry, Dale handed over the injured soldier. The rest is up to you, Uncle Helmut. Helmut smiled confidently, brandishing his sword and ordering, cavalry battalions, all-out attack. The entire army charged forward with surging morale, shouting, for House Saxon, for young Master Dale. Not long after, at House Saxon's base, the battle concluded victoriously. Inside the command tent, Duke Saxon called his son to question him. I called you because there's something I want to ask. Why did you charge into the enemy ranks alone? He spoke sternly, his gaze sharp. Why did you do something so reckless? Dale froze, thinking to himself, why am I getting scolded like this? Duke Saxon repeated his demand. Explain why you charged into the enemy ranks alone. Dale could only bow his head in obedience. He began to explain. Father said that the knights of House Saxon are the people I will one day lead. Dale raised his head, asserting, I was simply fulfilling the duty befitting that title. However, Duke Saxon merely curled his lip, delivering a cold judgment. Your reasoning is too weak. Dale was completely bewildered. He didn't understand why his father, who was famously fond of his knights, would act this way. Gathering all his courage, Dale retorted, Father, may I ask why you stood by and watched your knights die? Duke Saxon stood up, explaining cruelly, the territory of House Saxon constantly faces monsters. Knights who go to the front lines without drawing their swords, only hoping to be saved, have no place here. Dale persisted, but father, I still hoped you would save a loyal knight. Duke Saxon immediately countered. Like you tried to do? He looked directly into his son's eyes, his voice filled with disappointment. You have made those who must think and act for themselves to survive on the battlefield become reliant, Duke Saxon coldly questioned, believing someone would come to save them. How many knights with that mindset do you think could survive? He explained his brutal philosophy. Only when soldiers reach their limits should the leader intervene. That is the family's duty. Dale silently acknowledged the undeniable logic in his father's words, a truth he himself had known in his previous life, but a spark of determination still flickered in the boy's eyes. Suddenly, Duke Saxon smiled, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. The way you act on your own will is very impressive. Never lose that spirit, Dale. Dale smiled faintly in relief. Let's head back to the castle, his father said as he opened the tent flap. Soon, the story of the young duke charging into a horde of orcs to save a knight became a famous legend throughout the empire. Rumors were fabricated that he had single-handedly annihilated 1,000 orcs, spreading like wildfire. Although the person involved felt incredibly embarrassed, this event breathed new life into the entire duchy. A few days later at the training grounds, Dale was welcomed by the knights like a hero. I already told you, there's no need for all this, the boy said, flustered. An elderly knight laughed heartily. Be proud, young Master Dale. He rallied and boosted the morale of the entire army, and they all responded in unison with fervent resolve. Dale could only chuckle inwardly at their enthusiasm when a maid approached. She announced, Guests from the Orhart family have arrived. Thank you, Eve, the knight replied, then turned to Dale. Shall we go, young master? Dale smiled, secretly thinking that a special guest was about to appear. It was none other than the patriarch of the martial Orhart family, the sword god Bardel. In the past, when the Empire launched its unification war, both the kingdom and the sword god Orhart family perished. Dale noticed Helmut's expression subtly change, guessing that he was recalling the sword god who had guided him years ago. The boy secretly thought this meeting might not be very pleasant. Facing his parents on their thrones, Dale respectfully replied to Duke Saxon that he was still diligently practicing. A butler announced the guests' arrival, and Dale signaled Helmut to escort them respectfully. 2 guests appeared, a lady and a young miss, impressing Dale because they arrived without any servants. The older woman introduced herself as Vanessa Orhart, humbly bowing to Duke Saxon. Vanessa lifted her veil, revealing a sorrowful expression, while the young girl accompanying her maintained a cold demeanor. Dale was completely bewildered, unable to understand the hidden meaning behind her action. Suddenly, the girl named Charlotte shouted, questioning why Vanessa had to bow before an enemy. Duke Saxon merely waved his hand, saying that she had endured much to get here. He turned and ordered Dale to show young Lady Charlotte around the castle, and he happily agreed. Dale politely extended his hand, inviting, Young Lady Charlotte? But Charlotte immediately brushed it away with a hateful glare. Don't. She slapped his hand away and yelled, Don't touch me. Dale was stunned, staring blankly at his rejected hand. Both Duke Saxon and his wife were aghast at Charlotte's insolent behavior. Vanessa angrily scolded the girl, demanding an immediate apology for insulting imperial nobility. Charlotte merely clicked her tongue, then turned and walked away, leaving Dale still bewildered. The girl ran straight out of the Great Hall, leaving Dale's calls behind. Wait, young Lady Charlotte. In the Great Hall, Vanessa Orhart bowed her head. Please forgive my daughter's insolence. Her emotions have been very unstable lately. Elena looked worried, asking, What happened? Vanessa began to recount, an image of Count Brandenburg appearing. Not long ago, a new supervisor was appointed to our territory. She continued with a resentful voice. He is known as the Empire's Holy Knight, but also infamous by the nickname Pig King. Brandenburg's sinister silhouette reached out, coveting a talented heir from any female swordswoman. Even if it was my daughter, Vanessa's voice trembled, a child not yet of age. In a haunting image, the villain's hand reached for little Charlotte, who was holding a sword. Vanessa recounted painfully. The child was lucky to escape, but that terrifying memory cannot be erased. Before Duke Saxon's contemplation and Elena's sympathy, she expressed, I want to protect her. As a fallen noble, I implore you to accept my daughter as a maid for the Saxon family. Vanessa's plea still echoed as the scene shifted to the training grounds, where Dale and Charlotte faced each other, so that man can never touch her again. Dale called out, Young Lady Charlotte, but the girl merely glanced back coldly. He asked if she knew where she was going, and Charlotte curtly replied, I don't care, making Dale secretly wonder why it was the training ground. Dale smiled and asked, Is your hand all right? And received a brief reply, I'm fine. Don't worry. The boy secretly thought that despite acting disagreeable and seemingly having just cried, she was still just a child. Immediately, Charlotte spun around, her eyes flashing, and drew her sword in a swift motion. She pointed the tip of her sword directly at Dale, growling, In that case, fight me. The girl's eyes were full of determination. Dale of the Saxon family, draw your sword. Dale was utterly dumbfounded, only managing to utter, "What?" Secretly complaining in his mind. She just does whatever she wants. Fight me. Charlotte Orhart pointed her sword straight, decisively challenging Dale. First, I need a reason, Dale replied nonchalantly. I've heard many rumors already. She recounted the story of the hero who single-handedly annihilated 1,000 orcs to save a fallen knight. I will defeat you, the one said to be unrivaled in the Empire, and prove to the whole world that I am stronger. Then, I will prove that I can protect my family from that man. Dale was surprised. That man? Count Brandenburg, the Holy Knight, she declared boldly, making Dale freeze. I could never forget him. Dale gritted his teeth. Memories of the traitor, the Empire's hound who had stabbed him in the back, flooding his mind. He thought to himself, we have the same goal, she could be a good ally. But first, I need to give her a taste of reality. Dale suddenly turned his back and walked away, leaving Charlotte bewildered. He picked up a short sword from the weapon crate and scoffed. You're just a child who knows nothing. Attack me with all your might, Dale provoked. I was already planning to, Charlotte growled, her eyes flashing with magical light. Immediately, she charged forward, swinging a powerful sword strike. Dale, with just his short sword, easily blocked her attack. Charlotte poured all her strength from midair, pressing down, but still couldn't budge him. With an angry expression, she continuously increased the pressure on the sword's tip. Dale calmly parried each of her attacks with ease. He realized she was using her wrist to counter and even channeling aura to wield the oversized sword. Just as mages generate mana from the circle in their hearts, swordsmen possess a similar source of power. Two surges of power clashed fiercely on the snow-covered training ground. Dale thought to himself, Charlotte was truly a knight to her very core. With a confident smile, Charlotte unleashed her aura, enveloping her rapier. She charged to attack, forcing Dale to raise his sword in defense. Two surges of power clashed violently, creating a massive shockwave. Charlotte smugly thought that with this level of skill, she was sure to win. A memory resurfaced, of when she was a child. Her mother often told stories about her deceased father. She said that Charlotte had to protect their family in her father's stead, as the proud daughter of the sword god. Returning to reality, that pride erupted as she shouted, I am the daughter of the sword god. However, both their weapons were knocked back after the clash. Charlotte collapsed onto the snow, desperately asking why she couldn't win. Dale coldly replied, because you are not the sword god yourself. He continued, saying that her pride was not wrong. But with your current strength, you cannot protect your family from that man. The Holy Knight's sword is dozens of times stronger than my sword right now. Charlotte burst into tears, sobbing and asking, then what should I do? She recalled that even when the kingdom fell, her family shattered. Her sword had never stopped. So why? Why was it constantly being blocked by this boy? Dale sensed something was amiss with her attack. The two charged at each other again in a fierce battle. Charlotte screamed, pouring all her strength into her final slash. Dale raised his sword to block, but then froze as his sword suddenly emitted a strange light. The sword in Dale's hand suddenly flared with light as it blocked the attack. To Charlotte's astonishment, Dale swore, I, Dale of the Saxon family, pledge my family's honor to become the protector of the Orhart family. Charlotte was stunned, tears streaming down her face at the unexpected declaration. He smiled resolutely. Until the day you are strong enough to defeat him yourself, I and the Saxon family will be your shield. Why? Charlotte choked out. Dale replied, because your sword deserves it. Dale made an offer. Swear to become a sword for me and for the Saxon family. Wiping away her tears, Charlotte smiled and accepted. How could I refuse? She knelt on one knee, offered her sword, and solemnly swore, I, Charlotte Orhart, pledge on a knight's honor. It might have looked like a childish promise, but the determination behind it was strong enough to be called a fated vow. That same day at the Duke's office, at Lady Orhart's request, Charlotte became a maid for the Saxon family. Duke Saxon mused, I didn't expect her to accept without hesitation. What happened between you and that girl? Dale placed his hand on his chest and replied, in the name of the Saxon family, I swore to protect the Orhart family. The Duke narrowed his eyes, scrutinizing. You didn't use the family's honor out of pity, did you? No, father, Dale replied decisively. Then what do you wish to achieve? The sole bloodline of the sword god. Her talent is very special, Dale continued. We have made a new vow together. What I seek is a new sword god who will wield their blade for the benefit of our duchy. After hearing the plan, Duke Saxon smiled with satisfaction. Excellent. Dale also smiled, thinking to himself, the last lineage of the sword god now belongs to us. This is a heavy blow to that bastard Brandenburg. In the capital city of Malberg in Old Teutonia, a curse echoed through the night. The wine glass shattered, revealing its owner's fury. Count Brandenburg roared at his subordinate. That arrogant fool dared to make a move first? While the cloaked figure could only bow in apology. He slammed his hand on the table, yelling, "Idiots! You couldn't even capture a mere child." The subordinate tremblingly reported that the assassin had been eliminated before reaching Saxon territory, and the perpetrator was likely Charlotte Orhart. Brandenburg gnashed his teeth, unable to hide his vexation. "Useless lot," he muttered, then turned and walked away, his gaze fixed on a treasured sword. Touching the sword's hilt, he sank into a reverie. Ah, those were good days. Memories of his youthful campaigns flooded back as he lifted the sword, whispering, "Do you agree, Holy Sword Ducandle?" His eyes gleamed with fanaticism. "My beloved fiancée, wait a little longer. I will find myself a perfect heir at all costs." Returning to reality, Brandenburg ordered his subordinate, "Contact the bandit guild, send men to the Duke's territory." With a sinister smile, he resolved, "Pay them any price. Bring that wretched child Charlotte back to me." Meanwhile, a week had passed since Charlotte's oath, and she was immersing herself in studying at the library to adapt to her new life. Besides training the maids, daily sparring with Dale also became part of her schedule, under the swordsman's supervision. Dale smiled confidently, replying to the instructor, "Of course." Charlotte merely huffed, taking a firm stance, her eyes filled with determination. The swordsman smiled, pleased with both their spirits. "Begin." As soon as the command was given, the two swords clashed, sending sparks flying. Dale gently parried Charlotte's sword strike, his expression unperturbed. The boy retaliated with a series of lightning-fast defensive slashes, creating a dazzling display of light. Charlotte attacked relentlessly with sharp sword strike. Dale easily blocked her moves under the watchful eye of a swordsman in black armor. The swordsman silently assessed, "Is this truly a children's match? They can't compare to knights yet, but their killing intent and speed are remarkable." Dale suddenly shifted stance, lunging forward with astonishing speed. He used his cloak as a feint, momentarily startling Charlotte. Even so, she remained unfazed, gripping her sword hilt tightly with determined eyes. The match ended when the swordsman stopped Dale's blade with his bare hand, smiling in approval. "Well done." He praised Charlotte, but she brushed it off and frankly asked, "Sir Helmut, where do I fall short?" Helmut smiled and asked, "My lady, do you know the essence of the rapier? Isn't it to thrust?" "No," he replied. "The true essence lies in your footwork, in your legs." Helmut analyzed. "When young Master Dale dodged your attack, he simultaneously closed the distance. You should have retreated to find an opening." He pointed out that the more she tried to extend her reach, the more her blade trembled and lost accuracy. Helmut concluded firmly, "You will have to rebuild your entire foundation," leaving Charlotte stunned. Dale added, remarking that her posture and footwork were immature, and declared he would correct that strange thrust. "Teased," Charlotte yelled in anger, while Helmut burst into hearty laughter. Helmut patted Dale's head, admitting he was just joking, while Dale secretly thought about the pressure to become even stronger under the tutelage of one of the 7 swordmasters. Constructing a magic circle was similar, sensing the flow of mana, stabilizing it, and imprinting it onto the body. Returning to the magic lesson, Sophia asked Dale in astonishment, "You've already completed forming the second circle?" And the boy calmly confirmed. In this world, a mage's power is measured by RPM, revolutions of mana per minute, with a novice mage achieving around 300 revolutions per minute. Dale calculated that with his current power, he already met the conditions to form the third mana circle. Therefore, he decided to conduct a small experiment. The goal was to enhance the basic ice bullet magic. He would increase its mass, hardness, then create a magical gun barrel to boost its velocity and spin. The target was locked, a large tree trunk in the snowy forest. Dale fired his improved technique, ice bullet, armor, piercing shot. The ice bullet tore through the air and drilled a massive hole straight through the tree trunk. Standing before the result, even Dale himself was astonished by this terrifying destructive power. Sophia smiled approvingly. "Always the same, you learn so quickly." Dale humbly replied, saying it was all thanks to his master, which pleased her immensely. Sophia secretly thought about her student, a boy who always used his power for what was right. She admitted that sometimes Dale's power made her a little apprehensive, but it inspired an even greater belief. Sophia hugged him tightly and said, "You truly are my proud student." The unexpected intimate gesture made Dale blush, completely flustered. Internally, he screamed at his master's excessive casualness. By dawn, the next day, Dale was still standing alone in the courtyard, his heart lingering with confusion. He briefly wondered if Sophia only saw him as a child, then quickly dismissed the thought to focus. "Focus on training," he told himself, then began casting magic. "Rise, ice wall." A colossal, jagged ice wall immediately rose from the ground. Dale reached out and touched the icy structure, examining the result of his training session. Dale deployed the ice bullet spell, transforming an ice spear into countless sharp bullets. The ice bullets embedded themselves deep into the icy wall, creating a series of small explosions. He controlled them to fly around, forming defensive shields upon impact. Satisfied with the result, Dale thought to himself, "Next time, I'll try turning them into solid bullets." Suddenly, a voice called his name from behind. Charlotte Orhart appeared, sword in hand, and said, "So you're practicing here?" Dale replied, and Charlotte explained that she was practicing the footwork Helmet had taught her. When Dale remarked that she seemed to enjoy learning swordsmanship, Charlotte was momentarily flustered but then admitted it. The girl hesitated, wanting to say something about what happened earlier. Charlotte bowed her head, sincerely apologizing for her rude behavior towards young Master Dale. Dale casually replied, "You were quite rude, indeed," which stunned Charlotte. But then the boy flashed a bright smile, saying he would forgive her this time. After Dale suggested she not be so formal, Charlotte happily agreed. In the snowy forest, Charlotte confided that she really liked the weather there. She explained that she could swing her sword late into the night, and the cool air would immediately help her cool down. Charlotte smiled when Dale said he understood that feeling. Both leaned against a tree, Charlotte secretly delighted to have found someone who understood her. Dale gazed thoughtfully at the night sky. Time really flies, doesn't it? Meanwhile, from the mansion window, Duke Saxon smiled as he watched the two children and said to his wife, "They look quite good together, don't they?" Elena gently replied, "We'll have to keep an eye on them." Dale and Charlotte stood together in the snowy forest, while Elena's voice echoed, affirming a mother's duty to guide her son. Not long after, in the duchy's outskirts, a man gratefully thanked Duchess Elena for her kindness. Dale thought about his mother's charity work in the slums, where she provided food and necessities weekly. This year, Dale and Charlotte also began participating, but Charlotte suddenly ran off when she heard a call. A dirty, desperate boy clutched Charlotte's hand and begged for help. The girl listened anxiously as the boy sobbed that his mother was in danger. "Please save me," the boy pleaded urgently. As Charlotte led the boy into a deserted alley, Dale followed, his heart full of suspicion. He realized they had strayed far from the escorting knights, and the boy only asking a child like Charlotte for help was extremely suspicious. Dale ran faster, his eyes suddenly catching sight of a figure sitting on a rooftop. "That guy, he's from the Bandit Guild," Dale realized. "Their target is Charlotte." The boy stopped and told the two, "Just a moment, I'll bring my mother out right away." As the boy ran into the shadows, a stranger stepped out to block the way. A group of bandits appeared, and their leader spoke. "What are two precious children doing in such a dangerous place?" He aimed directly at Charlotte. "We only have business with the young lady here. The young master had better leave quietly." The leader smirked, drew a dagger, and threatened, "If you try anything here, you might get hurt." But Dale merely smirked, his eyes gleaming with determination. "I, Dale of House Saxon, swear to protect the daughter of House Orhart from ruffians like you," he declared boldly, standing in front of Charlotte. The leader burst into a scornful laugh. "Ah, the chivalrous spirit of a noble is truly admirable, but perhaps you should reconsider the time and circumstances," he said. And his accomplices also drew their weapon. The leader sneered. "It seems you need to experience a little of the pain this world has to offer." Charlotte whispered in a panic, "Dale, I forgot my sword." Dale calmly replied, "It's all right, don't be scared." The boy thought to himself, this was the perfect opportunity to test the new technology of the Cloak of Shadows, a method of self-defense. Immediately, bandits from all directions rushed forward simultaneously, surrounding the two children. But the first attackers suddenly froze, their feet bound by mysterious dark tendrils, causing one to exclaim, "Wind?" Realizing the anomaly, the leader roared, "Dodge, you fools!" Dale smirked. He realized it quickly. Not bad for a high-ranking thief. A surge of dark magic erupted from Dale, blasting away the charging bandits. A burly bandit couldn't escape in time, screaming in despair as he was completely swallowed by the darkness. This was a new technique Dale discovered after reaching the second circle, implanting shadow constructs like parasites. The shadow entity burrowed into the bandit's head, making him let out a heart-wrenching scream. Witnessing the horrifying scene, another bandit confusedly asked, "What the hell is he doing?" From the shadows, a muscular monster roared wildly, standing tall before Dale. "I'm hungry. I'm so hungry," the monster shrieked, while another bandit realized in horror. That's an undead," the leader yelled, ordering his subordinates. "What are you waiting for? Kill it now." He gritted his teeth, determined that whether he was Duke Saxon's son or not, this brat would die by his blade. The monster stomped a powerful foot onto the ground. After the monster vanished, the bandits once again surrounded Dale, but this time without their contemptuous expression. The leader confidently declared, "No one can block my air assassination technique in this alley." But his energy-throwing knives were easily blocked by Dale's dark defense, making him curse in frustration. The green-haired bandit unleashed dark throwing knives, but Dale retaliated with a spell named after Buckshot. Countless energy orbs pierced the leader, making him cough up blood. The boy coldly activated the magic circle. A massive blue light blast sent the enemy flying. From the shadows, Charlotte anxiously called Dale's name. In the middle of the battlefield, the undead monster let out a savage roar. Dale frowned, thinking to himself, "Looks like one shot wasn't enough. Those aura users are really tough." The assassin growled, his eyes filled with resentment. "It's not over yet." He screamed, "Die," and charged, but only faced a storm of shadows controlled by Dale. The undead monster lunged to tear apart the bandit, howling in hunger. Done with the task, Dale turned back to his friend. "Charlotte, are you all right?" Dale asked. Charlotte, still stunned, weakly replied, "Yeah." He helped Charlotte up, while the last surviving bandit screamed in terror and fled. Dale launched an ice bullet from his shoe, piercing the fleeing culprit's leg. "Save me," the assassin pleaded as the shadow monster closed in. Dale coldly commanded, "Return." As the shadow retracted, the bandit hastily said, "I'll tell you everything I know." "Everything you know?" Dale repeated, while the other urgently reiterated his offer. A flash of blue light pierced straight through the bandit's head. Dale coldly finished him off, nonchalantly saying, "I'm not particularly interested." After the massacre, Dale stood firm in the alley, shadows still lingering at his feet. Charlotte stared at the surrounding scene in shock, whispering, "This is..." Dale calmly explained, "Yes, this is the true face of the Saxon family, and also the power that will protect you." He asked directly, "Seeing this firsthand, are you scared?" Charlotte mumbled in admission, "A little," but then she smiled. "But it's okay. Didn't you fight to protect me?" An iconic image appeared, Charlotte kneeling and offering her sword to Dale, symbolizing her vow. She boldly declared, "If your family becomes the shield that protects mine, then one day, I will become the sword wielded for you." With a radiant smile, she asserted, "Thank you for showing me the meaning of the future. I will become even stronger." Dale's blue eyes gleamed with a complex gaze. Part of the reason Dale took Charlotte under his wing was due to guilt over what happened to Sir Bartle 24 years ago. Back in the present, Dale extended his hand towards Charlotte. He smiled, completely unaware that Charlotte's decision to become his sword held a much deeper meaning than he could ever imagine. Meanwhile, at Count Brandenburg's mansion, damn it. He gritted his teeth, clenching his fists in rage. A challenging letter arrived, inviting him to the Duchy of Saxon. The letter's wording carried an undeniable pressure. "This is Duke Noir's summons, demanding your accountability." Even a great holy knight could not refuse this command. A few days later, at Duke Saxon's castle, Brandenburg and his knights presented themselves. Count Brandenburg listened with a scowl, unable to hide his annoyance. Seated on his throne, Duke Saxon sneered, "I didn't expect you to arrive so quickly." He continued with a condescending smile, "Please forgive this humble reception." Brandenburg forced a laugh in response. "Haha, what could be more urgent than your summons?" Deep down, he secretly cursed Dale and Charlotte. Those cunning brats. Duke Saxon got straight to the point. After the commotion at the mansion, the entire empire is spreading great concern about a daytime kidnap. Brandenburg laughed loudly, feigning innocence. "I believe I can guess why you've summoned me here." But as he was about to deny his guilt, dark magic erupted from Duke Saxon. A massive surge of dark energy surged straight towards Brandenburg, astonishing him. His knights were swept into the magical vortex before they could even comprehend what was happening. They screamed in despair as their bodies were corroded and disintegrated by the dark magic. This power was too terrifying. Even the most elite knights couldn't resist. Brandenburg realized the nature of this magic in horror. It was advanced dark magic. Void storm. Under immense pressure, the Holy Knight was forced to his knees, while Duke Saxon coldly commanded, "Kneel, holy swordsman." Brandenburg roared in resentment, but only received a stern warning from the Duke. "You won't get a second warning." Completely suppressed, Brandenburg bitterly admitted, "Damn it. Although Duke Noir has a valid reason, I didn't expect him to go this far. As you know, I summoned you here for peace," Duke Saxon declared from his throne, looking down at the kneeling Brandenburg. He warned with eyes glowing with dark power. "But if you dare lay a hand on the Saxon descendants again, I will wipe out the entire Brandenburg family." Brandenburg gritted his teeth, swallowing the bitter threat that the Duke called a sincere request. After crushing his opponent, Duke Saxon adopted a cordial tone again. "You must be tired after your long journey. Why not rest and warm yourself a little?" Trying to maintain his last shred of dignity, Brandenburg replied stiffly, "Your kindness truly moves your humble servant, Duke, but unfortunately." Duke Saxon merely smiled triumphantly upon hearing the refusal. "Circumstances do not permit me to remain in this territory any longer." Brandenburg turned his back and walked away in humiliation, under the gaze of Duke Saxon, Dale, and Charlotte. The Duke's display of power before Brandenburg one of the emperor's most loyal retainers, would become the spark that ignites the entire empire through the rumors spread by the nobility. It started as a small spark, but soon, the flames of conflict spread, and their mission would be to take down that very holy knight. When the world heard that the holy knight had to kneel before Duke Noir, the foundations of the empire would shake. Meanwhile, in Duke Saxon's office, the Duke pulled back the covering cloth, revealing a horrifying sight before Sephia's eyes. These are the bodies of the bandit guild members who attacked Dale. Sephia froze upon hearing his next words. All of this was done by Dale alone. The bodies were torn apart, riddled with holes, and organs were scattered everywhere. For the first time, Sophia began to doubt herself, thinking that perhaps her teaching methods were flawed. Duke Saxon took advantage of her confusion, making an offer. To guide Dale's extraordinary talent in the right direction, I will need your wisdom, Sophia. I want to invite you to be chief advisor. Sophia looked up, stunned by the profound implications in the Duke's words. She realized he didn't just want her as a tutor, but to become a part of the Saxon family itself. Duke Saxon continued to persuade. Dale relies heavily on you, Sophia, but my strength alone cannot guide the boy. He emphasized. If you support him, everything will change. After a moment of deliberation, Sophia turned back, her gaze firm. I understand. She told herself that her most important task now was to understand how that child perceived the world. Time passed, and Dale's 10th birthday arrived in a lavish banquet hall. Unlike last year, this time even envoys from the Emperor's court came to attend. Among them, the most notable guest was approaching the young master of the party. Duke Saxon offered a greeting. Welcome, Marquis Eurus. The red-haired Marquis smirked. It's an honor, young Master Dale. Rewinding a moment, the Saxon family's lavish dishes left the guests in awe. The nobility buzzed with discussions about the wealth of the Northern Territory, dispelling all previous doubts. Amidst the lively atmosphere, Dale quietly observed everything with an inscrutable smile. He realized that those present were central nobles, the Emperor's faction, the greatest power in the empire. Their reason for being here was too clear. It was an implicit warning, a message from the royal family that they would not overlook any insult to the Holy Knight. And now, the chosen messenger to deliver that message stood right before him. Marquis Eurus bowed in a very formal manner. So you must be young Master Dale. He was Marquis Crimson Eurus, and he smiled, saying, It's a pleasure to finally meet you. Eurus was the master of the Red Tower, one who pursued fire, fury, and power through order. The Red Tower mages were infamous for their obsession with the philosophy of might makes right since the time of the Empire. Dale secretly thought about the past, when he himself was once an experimental subject for the Red Tower mages. Marquis Eurus approached him, flattering him about the unparalleled magical talent of the Saxon prodigy. He reiterated the rumor that Dale had single-handedly wiped out an entire orc legion when he was only 9 years old. Truly, the Duke's son, Eurus concluded with a meaningful smile. Dale politely returned the greeting. Thank you for your kind words. I wish you a pleasant evening. Feeling tired of the annual birthday parties, the boy sought a quiet corner outside. Dale secretly thought, if only he could be training with Charlotte right now. But out of concern for her safety, he decided to practice his sword alone. Suddenly, a piercing scream echoed from afar. Dale flinched, sensing something amiss when he heard someone yelling at a maid. Without hesitation, he rushed towards the source of the sound. In a hidden corner, a maid was desperately pleading, mentioning the Saxon family in hopes of being spared. The obese noble roared, despising her lowly status. He drew a dagger, scoffing that everyone was busy celebrating the young master's birthday. He held the knife to the girl's throat, threatening to slit it if she resisted further. Just then, Dale witnessed the entire disgusting scene. What the hell are you doing? He growled, making the noble jump. Dale stepped forward, his face as cold as ice and his eyes filled with murderous intent. The noble stammered, Young Master Dale, why are you here? He even brazenly uttered provocations, causing Dale's fury to erupt violently. The red-haired noble sneered, You're still too green, so I doubt you have any experience. He held a knife to the maid's throat and introduced himself. How about I, Petro, personally teach you a few things? Making the girl cry out Dale's name in fear. Seeing Dale appear, Petro challenged, I'll give you a show. Dale coldly raised his hand, and a complex magic circle appeared. Don't worry. With a determined gaze, he reassured Eve, I'll get you out of here soon. Petro was stunned, unable to believe that in this hierarchical world, someone dared to attack him. Immediately, a massive ice spear shot straight from Dale's hand. Petro was flung far away, sprawling on the grass. Dale stood there, his gaze firm, thinking to himself that he had no intention of backing down. The noble clutched the wound on his cheek, trembling as he thought that opposing the Emperor's man was not a wise move. He roared, What the hell are you doing, young Master Dale? But the only reply was Dale's sharp command, Kneel before me. What? Dale growled, fury flaring in his eyes. Are you deaf? He pointed directly at Petro's face. Kneel and apologize to Eve right now. Petro gnashed his teeth, resentfully thinking about Dale's status, that brat from the Saxon family. He tried to save face, using the Emperor as a shield. Insulting me is no different than insulting the Emperor, Dale retorted with a sharp question that silenced Petro. Then tell me, does the Emperor have a hobby of assaulting the servants of noble families? How dare you say that? Petro yelled in anger, not realizing the uninvited guests had arrived. Dale issued his final warning, while his parents and Marquis Eurus stood right behind him. Eurus, the Crimson Marquis, smirked, repeating with amusement, "Kneel." Aha. He crossed his arms, calmly remarking while Duke Saxon maintained a poker face. What an interesting turn of events. Duke Saxon appeared, asking Dale for an explanation, and the boy calmly replied, "This man intended to assault one of our servants." Petro, still sprawled on the ground, hastily explained, "Just for that, he dared to disrespect me? Young master was too rash, your grace." But Dale coldly cut him off. "Have I given you permission to stand?" The boy boldly declared before the crowd. "The esteemed guests from the capital all represent His Majesty." Then he pointed directly at Petro. "Yet this man dared to defile that honor by humiliating a servant. Therefore, I cannot let his disgraceful behavior go unpunished," Dale concluded. And from the crowd, Eurus smirked. The Crimson Marquis spoke, his voice full of amusement. "Haha, what a clever boy." Eurus looked directly at Dale, his smile growing more enigmatic. "Indeed, you speak the truth," he continued, his tone contemptuous. "I never expected someone trusted by His Majesty to be so despicable," making Petro exclaim in horror. "Lord Eurus?" Eurus summoned a flame in his hand, his eyes cruel, and commanded, "Burn." He cursed. "Filthy worm," and utter horror was clearly visible on Petro's face. The obese noble crawled on the ground, desperately begging for his life. But Eurus only smiled cruelly as the flames erupted fiercely. A torrent of hellfire was unleashed, aimed directly at Petro. Horrific screams echoed as his body was engulfed in flames. Before the pile of ashes, Eurus turned to Dale. "Suppressing worms who insult the Empire is my duty." He placed a hand on the boy's shoulder, his voice full of hidden meaning. "I greatly look forward to your future, young Master Dale." Dale simply replied with a slight, confident smile. After the commotion subsided, the Emperor's delegation departed, restoring peace to the Saxon mansion. A moment later, the maid's voice called out, "Young Master Dale." In the luxurious room, Eve gently woke the young master. "It's time to wake up." Dale thanked her, making Eve respond with a slight embarrassment that it was nothing major. Seeing her hesitate, Dale asked if she had anything to say. Eve bowed her head, expressing that serving the young master was a great honor. Dale mused about this strange yet warm feeling, something he would have to get used to in his new life. He smiled brightly and waved. "Thank you, Eve." As the eldest son of the Saxon family, Dale understood the weight of his status and was determined to leverage it. Later, in the office, Duke Saxon looked at his son and remarked, "You are very intelligent, Dale, but your behavior lately has been very strange." Dale calmly asked his father why he said that. Duke Saxon revealed a terrifying hypothesis. If the hero from another world had not died in battle against the divine sword Bardel, then his blade might have been pointed towards the Saxon duchy. Dale replied that it was a blasphemous accusation, but his gaze remained unwavering. "How can you be so sure?" Duke Saxon questioned. Dale asserted, "Because, in my previous life, I heard about the Empire's conspiracy against the Saxon family." He explained that the Empire had abandoned the hero, fearing their hound would go mad once its leash was broken. Even though the hero had defeated the Demon King, the Empire still didn't purge the dark remnants from his territory. Instead, they issued unreasonable commands, forcing the Saxon family to sacrifice themselves to clear that dangerous land. "They even bestowed that land upon you, father," Dale stated bluntly. He concluded that as long as darkness existed, their family's bloodshed would never cease, leaving Duke Saxon in silent contemplation. Duke Saxon continued, "Furthermore, the people within the Empire and even beyond the northern borders all point at us, the Saxon family, and call us the family of darkness. Just as they abandon the hero, they will try to eliminate internal risks, those who could threaten them from within." Duke Saxon was stunned. "They abandoned the hero? How could you?" Dale replied, "These are simply deductions and interpretations from the records I've read. Logically, it makes the most sense. According to the official story, the hero had a glorious death after a fierce battle with Sword Saint Bardel." Duke Saxon admitted, "My surprise is natural. After all, only a few people know the truth behind the hero's death." Dale continued to explain, "If my theory is correct, the Empire is simply an oppressor, using force to seize weaker nations." The Duke was secretly astonished. This child possessed wisdom far beyond his years. "So, what do you think the Saxon family should do next?" Duke Saxon asked. Dale decisively replied, "The Saxon family can never coexist with the Empire." The boy smiled coldly, his eyes sharp. "Therefore, we must destroy the Empire." Dale's resolute declaration left his father speechless. Duke Saxon could only utter his son's name in utter shock. He growled, his anger rising. "Do you know what you are proposing?" Dale remained calm. "I'm not saying we should gather an army and rebel immediately. 10 years from now," Dale stated a time frame, further confusing Duke Saxon. 10 years? Dale began to explain his plan. "Even now, resistance groups across the continents are still fighting for independence. There are vassals like you, Duke Saxon, who fear the Empire will turn its blade on them. The economy is in decline. Banditry is increasing daily. And even though the unification of the 7 continents has ended, the consequences of war are only getting worse," Dale asserted. "By then, we will have built enough strength to protect our family from the Empire. We will support resistance forces operating in various regions, and—" He had laid out his plan to overthrow the Empire. The conversation between father and son lasted until dusk. After hearing the entire plan, Duke Saxon thoughtfully asked, "What do you think?" Then he broke into a smile filled with admiration. "Your talent truly knows no bounds." The Duke laughed heartily. He continued, his gaze at Dale full of pride. "You see things that I cannot. I am very proud that you are my son," Duke Saxon solemnly declared. "From today, you are no longer a 10-year-old child, but my heir." Dale looked up at his father, emotionally replying, "Father." The boy smiled confidently, asserting, "As the head of the family, I will listen to and respect your words." Duke Saxon encouraged, "Speak without hesitation, Dale. What decision will you make for our family right now?" Dale smiled slyly. "You said you would treat me as an equal, didn't you, father? If so, please allow me to participate in the Tower Challenge in the ancient city," the boy boldly requested. It was a rigorous challenge to determine the ranking among mages. The strongest would become an elder, and the one standing at the very top would be hailed as the Tower Master of Magic. Duke Saxon sternly questioned, "Do you truly want to go to such a dangerous place, where you could lose your life?" Dale confidently responded to his father's worry about him not having completed the 3rd circle yet. "I will achieve it soon." The Duke remained skeptical, as the 3rd circle could usually only be achieved in one's 20s. Dale clenched his fist, asserting, "This decision is for both me and the Saxon family." He explained that if he proved himself through the Tower Challenge, his status as heir would strengthen his father's position, and he would gain genuine renown, not just through rumors. Duke Saxon asked his son, "And for that reason, you want to use the Tower Challenge?" Dale decisively replied yes, which brought a satisfied smile to his father's face. Duke Saxon approved. "Very well. I will entrust this matter to your judgment." Dale brightly thanked his father, promising to prove himself. A few days later, in the city of the dead, Necropolis, a gloomy edifice appeared under the twilight. A delegation was already waiting before the colossal gates as the Saxon family's carriage approached. From within, a voice rang out, announcing their arrival. The entire delegation bowed deeply as the carriage door opened, unanimously greeting Duke Noir. Dale stepped out of the carriage with his father, unable to hide a tired yawn. He secretly thought, perhaps he had overexerted himself again this time. Amidst the crowd, whispers arose as they recognized Duke Saxon and the young magic prodigy, Dale. However, a few remarked that the boy didn't look too well today. A young, blonde-haired noble sneered at the rumors of Dale's swordsmanship, dismissing them as a joke. He was Velik, the Academy's top student, who considered himself destined to win and saw Dale as merely a weak, pampered young master. Ignoring the disparaging remarks, Duke Saxon and Dale approached to greet the Tower Master. A woman wearing glasses, Eris, an elder of the tower, stepped forward and respectfully greeted Dale. Duke Saxon explained that Eris would be assisting Dale throughout the challenge. Dale politely asked Eris for her help, and she respectfully led the young master. Eris announced that 59 other graduates were waiting, and they would be participating in the challenge with him. Eris raised her hand, introducing the contestants who would face the Tower Challenge. Dale stood in the middle of a vast arena, surrounded by dozens of potential opponents. From the balcony, she introduced herself as Eris, Elder and Secretary General of the Tower. Eris began explaining the first trial of the Noir Dark Magic Tower, asking everyone to check their life necklaces. Dale held his necklace, listening as Eris explained that this was a battle royale-style fight to the death. The rules were simple. Use the corpses scattered across the arena to attack opponents. A valid hit would activate a shield and eliminate them. The attacker would receive 1 point, and whoever reached 3 points first would advance to the next floor. Dale thought to himself that it was a quick way to eliminate the inexperienced, after hearing the final rule prohibiting the use of holy relics. Meanwhile, another contestant looked at Dale warily, calling him a monster. Velik, who had just spoken, incited the others. As I said, we should take down that monster first. Despite his friend's hesitation, Velik confidently declared that there was no need to worry. Dale merely smirked, because from the moment they stepped in here, everyone was each other's opponent. Eris loudly declared, "Begin the trial," and immediately, magic circles lit up, aiming directly at Dale. A young mage gathered dark energy, preparing to launch a preemptive strike. But Dale was faster. He placed his hand down, channeling dark magic into a nearby corpse. Shadow energy spread, resurrecting not just one, but a multitude of corpses across the arena. One of the reanimated corpses, weapon in hand, charged forward with lifeless eyes. It swung its weapon, but its target was not Dale, but another contestant who had fallen to the ground. The corpse's emotionless face appeared, while its attack had astonished its opponent. A terrified contestant exclaimed, "Since when did he?" As Dale's undead closed in, the reanimated corpse attacked another academy student, causing him to fall helplessly. "This is water magic," he exclaimed in surprise upon seeing Dale use ice magic to neutralize another undead. But another necromancer in the crowd roared, "Could that guy be a dual-element mage?" and unleashed his own undead. The opponent's undead delivered a devastating punch, shattering Dale's frozen undead. Dale glared, his voice icy. "You dare lay a hand on my soldiers?" Immediately, the opponent's undead circled behind Dale, seizing him tightly. But Dale merely smirked. "It's useless. I've already protected them with ice armor." However, the opponent's attack still pierced the ice armor, destroying yet another undead. Velik seized the opportunity, loudly questioning. "Using water magic is against the rules, isn't it?" He vehemently declared, "Only necromancy and undead control magic are allowed. All other forms of enhancement are forbidden," Dale calmly retorted, while Eris remained silent. "Is there any rule that says I can only enhance undead with dark magic?" "Based on the fact that the trial hasn't been stopped, it seems I was right," Dale concluded, leaving Velik speechless. Annoyed, Velik ordered, "You two, block those undead and aim straight for him. We'll overwhelm him with numbers," someone shouted as the contestants charged, but they were immediately blocked by Dale's army of undead. Dale suddenly mused. Come to think of it, using artifacts is also forbidden. He looked at his undead, an idea flashing in his mind. In that case, there's only one way. Dale decisively stomped on the life necklace of an eliminated contestant. Then he charged straight into the encirclement of his own summoned undead, a self-destructive act no one could have foreseen. Dale charged straight at the undead, his eyes gleaming with confidence. The undead swung its massive weapon, but Dale deftly dodged it. "Got you?" the boy smiled, one hand blocking the blade while the other gathered dark magic. A punch of dark energy tore through the undead's chest. From the remaining bone fragments, Dale forged a sharp sword. He swung the new weapon, a powerful sword stroke cutting through the air. Velik was stunned. No way. My undead soldiers were defeated so easily, his companion realized. That's no ordinary sword. He reforged the bones to increase their durability. Facing the last undead, Dale didn't flinch. The enemy slammed down with full force, but only shattered the stone floor. Seizing the opportunity, Dale leaped high, striking from above. He let out a powerful shout. With just one slash, the last undead turned to dust. Velik cried out in despair. He even defeated my last undead soldier. A mage can't possibly wield a sword so skillfully, he muttered, seeing Dale standing among the defeated. Dale advanced coldly, each step making Velik tremble and retreat in fear. Please wait, young Master Dale, I surrender, Velik stammered, begging. Dale merely smirked. Come on, you won't actually die anyway. A decisive sword stroke swung down, aiming directly at Velik's life necklace. Velik shrieked, You monster, as his life necklace shattered. The outcome was decided. Young Master Dale single-handedly passed the trial with 60 life points. Watch closely, Dale told himself. This will be my first step forward. For the second floor of the tower trial, the test was to defeat the guardian creature known as the Flesh Golem. Normally, the surviving contestants from the first floor would cooperate, but Dale eliminated all of them. Unlike the rules of the first floor, all forms of magic were now permitted. Although the no artifacts rule still applies, he smirked, This much is more than enough for me. This is the perfect opportunity to test the limits of my third magic circle. The Flesh Golem's fist slammed down, shaking the ground. The monster roared ferociously. The Flesh Golem's hand was suddenly enveloped by a strange dark magic. Dale created a magic circle, confronting the giant monster head-on. He unleashed a powerful surge of energy, accelerated decay. Eris exclaimed in surprise. The young master's magic is truly unusual. Why did he choose to make it rot instead of destroying it completely? She wondered as the golem's hand began to decompose. He recalled, In my previous life, when facing monsters, this strategy was as important as firepower. It was called biochemical warfare. Dale grimaced, pinching his nose. Ugh, this stench of decay is truly awful, Duke Saxon mused, wondering if anyone realized they were witnessing pure dark magic, while Dale set a new record by clearing the 10th floor. Meanwhile, Velik and the other eliminated participants quietly departed. To recover from the massacre on the first floor, 59 other participants were given a chance to retake the exam, except for Dale, of course. That same night, Dale stood alone by the fountain. A familiar voice called his name. Master Sophia appeared, praising Dale's excellent performance. Dale humbly replied that it was all thanks to her teachings. His words made Sophia smile, feeling immensely proud. Dale called Sophia's name again, preparing to say something. Would you like to go on a date with me? The unexpected proposal stunned Sophia. The boy excitedly explained that there was a festival in the city, and they should go. After a moment of confusion, Sophia agreed, making Dale visibly happy. Sophia thought to herself, technically, this was indeed a date, but she was sure Dale was misunderstanding its meaning, wondering if this was a manifestation of a dark inner self. The two went together to the Necropolis City Festival, blending into the lively atmosphere. Under the fireworks-filled sky, Sophia worried Dale would get tired, but he just stretched and said he was fine. Dale happily added that there were still a few days of rest before the next challenge. Then they both fell silent again as they walked together. Sophia broke the silence by complimenting the moon, but Dale only replied briefly and then sighed, realizing the conversation was no longer as natural as before. Dale thought to himself, this silence wasn't uncomfortable, because it was always like this when he was with Sophia. Perhaps because she was the one who had believed in him from the start, but he realized he wanted to get closer to her more and more. Memories flooded back from a few days ago, the day he achieved the third magic circle and finally understood Sophia's words. To do that, he had to confront his own inner world, a painful process that even made his nose bleed. He recalled his determination to push his mana beyond the second circle, to break through his limits. Only by enduring the raging mana flow could he reach a new realm. 3 magic circles burst forth one after another, symbolizing his breakthrough. Suddenly, a dark sword appeared in his hand, completely astonishing Dale. He dazedly realized he had been transported to a completely unfamiliar place. It was a desolate, cold space, a land covered in white snow. Dale suddenly remembered Sophia's words. When meditating deeply, the inner world would manifest. He realized this was his inner world, his enlightened world, a world that originally contained nothing but absolute emptiness. Back in reality, Dale thought, it was in that empty world that Sophia had reached out to him. Pulled from his thoughts by Sophia calling his name, Dale concluded, she was the light of his world. He suddenly spoke up. Master, I like you, leaving Sophia speechless. What did you just say? Sophia asked, confused, while Dale just chuckled and scratched his head. The boy boldly repeated, I said I like you, Master Sophia. Sophia smiled gently at her student's confession. I see, she replied with a warm hug. Sophia gently said, I'm very fond of you too, Dale. Under the starry night sky, Dale mused about the privileges of this second life. A few days later, in the splendid capital, Dale stood in the challenge hall of the 11th floor, sighing because his romantic feelings for Sophia had not progressed. He brushed aside his frustration, telling himself that she only saw it as a child's words, and decided to focus on the exam. The Tower Master announced that the format for this round was a one-on-one duel, with the winner advancing to the 12th floor. His opponent was Albert Rosenheim, a third circle master, who appeared polite but couldn't hide his smugness. Dale merely smirked at his opponent's warning not to expect any mercy. This challenge round allowed the use of all artifacts and tactics, meaning the Necklace of Life would no longer guarantee safety. No longer restricted. I don't need to hold back, Dale thought. I'll crush him completely. As soon as the match began, Dale launched a preemptive attack with dark magic. Albert easily countered the attack, sneering, haha, you'd better focus. He began chanting, declaring that Dale's winning streak would end here. A spell called Black Arrows was summoned. Countless dark arrows aimed directly at Dale. Albert challenged, let's see how you block this attack. He was confident that he was not like the rookies Dale had faced before. A rain of black arrows poured down on Dale's position, creating violent explosions. Amidst the magical downpour, Dale moved like a ghost, perfectly dodging each attack. He landed, standing firm in the shaking arena. Dale secretly thought that attacking before the match officially began was clearly a violation of the rules. However, the judges remained silent, perhaps curious to see the extent of his true power. This is why I hate mages, he muttered, as he faced the new wave of attacks. Albert Rosenheim began chanting, now then, rise, my creations, swear eternal loyalty to me, servants born from darkness deeper than the bloodthirsty night. Witnessing the cheesy display, Dale could only inwardly sigh. So cringe. Albert was confident that Dale was certainly stronger than ordinary rookies. An undead swung an axe and charged, but Dale easily dodged it. How long do you plan to dodge? You can't win just by running away. Albert roared as another undead missed with an arrow. The eyes of the undead archer glowed, showing it was completely under its master's control. Surrounded by 3 undead, Dale began to channel counter-magic. Albert smirked. Out of tricks already? Dale retaliated with the Deathburst spell, causing the undead's bodies to swell grotesquely. A massive magical explosion engulfed everything around him. The winner today will be me, young Master Dale, Albert confidently declared. But then, his eyes suddenly froze in astonishment. Wait, since when? Where did you go? Albert panicked as he realized Dale had vanished without a trace. Albert was bewildered, wondering, isn't it cowardly to play dirty with a child? He frantically looked around, shouting, "Where are you?" as a dark shadow began to rise. Suddenly, Dale appeared right behind him, his voice cold. "You seem confused." He smiled meaningfully, using shadow shift and remarking, "That was a clever sneak attack." Albert quickly regained his composure, growling, "But that's still not enough to defeat me." Another voice echoed from Dale, full of hunger. "I'm hungry. I'm hungry. Can I eat him?" While the other voice screamed, "Let me eat." Dale merely smiled contentedly. The shadow monster materialized, and Dale casually permitted, "All right, but don't eat too much." The other contestants were stunned, horrified by the unfolding scene. The shadow entity lunged, coiling around Albert amidst his terrified screams. As he was completely devoured, Dale simply uttered calmly, "Oh no, they seem a bit overexcited from hunger." From within the shadows, Albert weakly pleaded, "Please, spare me," but only received Dale's smile in return. Dale commanded, "Retreat," and Albert was immediately thrown out, collapsing onto the arena floor. He lay motionless, and the announcement of the first round's victory rang out. The winner was Dale. Dale leisurely turned to look at his remaining opponents. He asked arrogantly, "So, who wants to fight in round 2? Making all 3 contestants turn pale. One of them tremblingly surrendered. "I give up. I just want to live." From the 3rd round onwards, all matches, except for the final, ended in default victories. Dale continued to refine his 3 magic circles, successively breaking through the guardians of each tower floor. When Dale reached the 20th floor, a worthy opponent finally appeared. It was the Headless Knight, a formidable guardian riding a skeletal warhorse. According to the introduction, this was a creature created by an elder of the Noir Tower himself, an unprecedented challenge. Everyone believed this might be young Master Dale's limit, but Duke Saxon merely smirked, for if everything was predictable, where would the fun be? As the match began, Dale unleashed an overwhelming surge of dark magic, engulfing the entire arena. The judges in the stands were stunned, not understanding what was happening. Suddenly, someone screamed as they saw the Headless Knight abruptly halt. That mighty guardian was kneeling respectfully before Dale. The boy silently gazed at the creature that had completely submitted to him. In the eerily silent atmosphere, Dale prepared to deliver his final judgment. "End yourself," he commanded coldly, and the Headless Knight immediately obeyed. The armor shattered. The guardian of the 20th floor self-destructed upon the enemy's command. Dale muttered, impressed by its loyalty that could abandon its guardian duty. He suddenly realized, "Damn it, perhaps I overdid it." Dale mused to himself as he faced the horrified gazes from the stands. Meanwhile, Duke Saxon was secretly proud, as this was proof that his son had reached the level of an elder of Noir Tower. Feeling he had shown enough, Dale decided it was time to return. He calmly walked towards the exit, leaving the still bewildered judges behind him. Dale told himself that although he could go further, there were limits that shouldn't be crossed, because beyond that gate was a territory that even monsters feared, and so Dale's challenge ended. With that, the Tower Challenge also came to an end for everyone. When the Tower Master of Magic returned, the entire Noir Tower stood up to welcome him with solemnity, like a parade. Both nobles and elders showed their loyalty. Every mage of Noir Tower bowed respectfully before the father and son. Thanks to Dale's overwhelming display of power, the northern territories began to unite under their banner. In the Duchy of Saxon, traces of a fierce battle still lingered on the white snow. A silver-purple-haired knight, enveloped in dark aura, bravely charged into the orcs' encirclement. His gaze was sharp, as he swung his sword, cutting down enemies. Leading the cavalry, he and his comrades shouted the slogan, "For young Master Dale, for the Saxon family." After successfully completing the Tower Challenge, Duke Saxon entrusted Dale with command of the army to exterminate the orcs. Another knight in the army swung his mace, smashing an orc to pieces. Although this was an overwhelming task for a 10-year-old child, no one doubted his command abilities. And so, as the legitimate heir of Duke Noir, Dale gradually began the unification of the North. The magnificent scenery of the capital appeared under the sunlight. In the Great Hall, a knight reported to Duke Saxon, "Sir, we have eliminated 145 orcs." Dale calmly reported. Only 3 were lightly wounded. There were no other casualties. When asked if he used magic to protect them, He firmly answered no in front of his father and Helmut. Duke Saxon smiled proudly, secretly thinking this was entirely the result of the Saxon family's swords. Duke Saxon praised his son. "Well done, Dale." Helmut laughed loudly, reporting that young Master Dale had completely mastered cavalry command, while Dale humbly attributed it to his teachings. Dale recalled his lessons on swordsmanship, tactics, and military strategy with his teacher. Helmut proudly declared that soon, Dale would be capable of leading even large-scale territorial wars. Scene change. Dale was in a training session, charging to attack Charlotte Orhart. He easily used the hilt of his sword to block her dangerous strike. On the vast training ground, Dale faced multiple opponents simultaneously. He maintained his defensive stance, his eyes sharp and completely calm. Charlotte admitted with a hint of pique. "You've improved quite a lot. I know I can't compare to you," she said in disappointment, making Dale secretly think he might have teased her a bit too much. Charlotte continued to list Dale's achievements, from being a third circle mage to conquering the 20th floor of the tower. She complained about everyone constantly praising young Master Dale, which made him just give a wry smile. "Don't worry," Dale gently reassured her. He smiled encouragingly. "You'll get stronger too, Charlotte." Dale's compliment made Charlotte blush, even though the 10-year-old girl was already an outstanding talent. "Don't treat me like a child anymore," she protested, but Dale calmly replied, "But you are a child." "So are you," Charlotte retorted, pointing, making Dale point at himself in surprise. "I'm already an adult," Dale confidently declared, while Charlotte could only sigh in exasperation. Suddenly, a voice rang out from the building, calling loudly, "Come on, young Master Dale." Duke Saxon began a tactical lesson with his son. Today's topic was the hammer and anvil tactic. He explained how cavalry was deployed to attack the enemy's flanks. Dale immediately understood the key point. Cavalry pierced the flanks, while infantry held the enemy in place. The Duke explained, this tactic was likened to placing iron on an anvil and striking it with a hammer, and it relied heavily on cavalry. Dale secretly thought, this tactic was only feasible thanks to the Dark Knights, realizing that the rules of war were the same in any world. Suddenly, Duke Saxon changed the subject. He asked about Charlotte's training progress. Although she couldn't compare to Dale, he admitted that her progress was truly remarkable. Charlotte had built a foundation in swordsmanship and would soon inherit the Saxon family's aura cultivation technique. However, Duke Saxon expressed a concern, and Dale immediately guessed it was about Charlotte's compatibility with their swordsmanship. An explanation appeared. Mages refined mana into magic, while knights transformed it into aura. Mages built mighty magic towers. Meanwhile, knights established knight orders based on the inheritance of sword techniques. Understanding the situation thoroughly, Dale merely smiled, secretly thinking, territorial wars, huh? I always welcome a new stage. Back at the training ground, Charlotte yelled and charged into attack. Two swords clashed fiercely in a desperate duel. With sharp eyes, Charlotte poured all her strength into the glowing sword. She seized the opportunity, pointing the tip of her sword straight at Dale's throat. Duke Saxon analyzed that the northern cavalry of the Saxon family crushed the battlefield with pure power. In contrast, Charlotte's swordsmanship focused on speed and agility. He admitted that her talent could help her join the ranks of the 7 sword masters, but he also asserted that she would never be able to become the first sword. An image of a skilled swordsman appeared amidst a shower of blossoms. That was the pinnacle where Charlotte's father, Bardell Orhart, once reigned. Dale suddenly spoke, mentioning the name of that legendary school. Sword Blossom. Duke Saxon sighed, regretting a lost swordsmanship style. It had completely vanished after the fall of the Knight Nation. Would that ultimate martial art truly disappear into oblivion forever? As time passed, Dale trained harder and harder, and his reputation gradually spread far and wide. Suddenly, an urgent report arrived, making Duke Saxon frown. "What did you say?" A subordinate frantically reported that Baron Parker had launched a territorial war to seize the copper mine. Dale mused that it was utterly illogical for a low-ranking noble to dare challenge a major family. The messenger continued to speak with extreme tension. He revealed that the mastermind behind it was Count Brandenburg, along with a letter. Brandenburg also proposed deploying the Order of St. Magdalena to join the war. Dale smirked, finally understanding their scheme. He sneered, determined to retaliate appropriately for the grudge Brandenburg still held against his father.